Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. If he could do it, the bond value of this beautiful teacher Multiverse would probably increase considerably too. Multiverse stared blankly at Haru at this moment, a trace of complexity showing in her beautiful eyes. Haru, wasting one's talent and spending precious time on boring dreams. When you're young, you might not think much of it, but when you grow up and feel regret, it'll be too late. Haru knew Multiverse was talking about her own experience and was about to speak. But Multiverse looked deeply at Haru and continued, I am such an example. That's why I know that if Furuashi-san and Ogata-san continue like this, they will definitely head toward a tragic ending. Outside the door, both Fumino Furuashi and Rizu Ogata showed expressions of surprise. They never expected that this supremely stern teacher who made them feel afraid, Garasu-sensei, had once experienced the same thing as them. It just seemed that Multiverse obviously regretted it now. That's why she didn't want the same tragedy to happen to them. For a moment, both felt their emotions become complicated. Somewhat ashamed. They had originally thought that Multiverse was interfering with their dreams too callously, without consideration for their feelings. But they hadn't thought that Multiverse actually just didn't want them to face tragedy. Both Fumino Furuashi and Rizu Ogata knew they had misunderstood Multiverse and secretly regretted their previous intense attitude toward her. But even so, they still didn't want to change their dreams. So what if they regretted it later? That was still their life to live. Haru. Multiverse had now opened her heart, and her tone had become much more gentle. It was like talking to a friend. Her beautiful eyes looked directly into Haru's eyes, asking with a profound gaze, even knowing that they will encounter an unfortunate future, do you still want to persist in helping them and letting them continue? Outside the door, Fumino Furuashi and Rizu Ogata couldn't help but prick up their ears again. They wanted to know Haru's answer. Haru met Multiverse's gaze directly. Without any retreat. Without any hesitation. Garasu-sensei. Haru didn't answer Multiverse directly, you said you also experienced such things. Then, I want to ask you, during that period when you persisted in your dreams, if you also had a classmate like me, would you have wanted me to support your dreams or persuade you to change them? This question stumped Multiverse. She really wanted to say that she would definitely want that person to persuade her to change. But feeling Haru's sincerity at this moment, she knew she couldn't say such self-deceptive words. She certainly knew how difficult her situation was when she persisted in her dreams and abandoned her talent. It was even much harder than Fumino Furuashi and Rizu Ogata's current situation. After all, at least Fumino Furuashi and Rizu Ogata had each other for support. But she only had herself at that time, yet she still persisted. Eventually, she gave up the dazzling aura of being a genius figure skater and became a teacher. If she had met someone like Haru at that time, then... Multiverse pressed her lips together. She remained silent for a long time. Finally, she raised her head and looked deeply at Haru, since you insist, I'll give you this chance. But if you can't do it, don't expect me to show mercy. Giving Haru a chance was already the biggest concession Multiverse could make. She didn't believe Haru had any possibility of accomplishing what he said. Making Fumino Furuashi pass all science subjects and Rizu Ogata pass all liberal arts subjects. When Haru couldn't complete it, she absolutely wouldn't make any more concessions. But at least for now, she decided to give Haru hope. Because this was the reward Haru's counter-question deserved. Ding! Your bond value with Multiverse has increased to 70. At this moment, a notification sounded in Haru's mind. It increased by 20 points all at once. Haru was somewhat surprised. He hadn't expected that Multiverse's bond value either had no fluctuation or such a large fluctuation. I've hit the jackpot. A smile appeared on Haru's face. It wasn't in vain that he risked offending Multiverse by saying those words. He looked at Multiverse and smiled slightly. Thank you, Garasu-sensei. Multiverse, sitting properly behind her desk, began organizing the documents on her desk. Under her cherry-colored hair, that cold face had returned to its usual state. Not as aggressive as before, but also not as gentle toward Haru as earlier. as if her relationship with Haru had returned to an ordinary state. "You may go." She didn't look up at Haru but spoke to dismiss him. "Goodbye, Garasu-sensei." Haru stood up and said farewell. If he didn't know that his bond value had increased, seeing Mufagirasu like this, he would have thought his bond value had decreased. His favorable impression of this kind teacher who worried herself sick for her students but wasn't good with words was growing stronger and stronger. He still didn't want his relationship with Mufagirasu to become terrible. Haru turned and left the classroom. However, what he didn't expect was that as soon as he opened the door, two soft, delicate figures threw themselves at him from left and right. Chapter 24, The Girl's Embrace. Megumi Kato's teasing Haru didn't need to look to know. On the left was Rizu Ogata. On the right was Fumino Furuashi. Because on the left, the elasticity was exaggerated and particularly substantial. On the right, it was a bit hard. Just kidding, there was actually some substance there too. Suddenly being embraced by two pure, lovely, delicate, and gentle beautiful girls, even Haru's heart rate accelerated a few beats. Haru, thank you so much." Fumino Furuashi and Rizu Ogata were now looking up at Haru with tears in their eyes. Full of emotion and excitement. Neither had expected that Haru would go to such lengths for their sake. Such a gentle and handsome boy. Who wouldn't be moved? Therefore, at the moment Haru walked out of the classroom, both could no longer contain the gratitude in their hearts. Ignoring the barriers between men and women, they lost their composure and suddenly hugged Haru, wanting to express the excitement in their hearts. However, the excitement was only momentary. After all, both were quite pure-hearted girls. Feeling Haru's chest filled with masculine scent, both immediately came to their senses. Their small faces instantly turned pink. They hastily let go of Haru in panic. Haru, I was just too excited just now." Fumino Furuashi explained hastily with a red face. Please forget what just happened." Rizu Ogata's cheeks were also completely red as she spoke, stammering. Neither dared to meet Haru's eyes. They felt extremely shy and regretted and were annoyed by their loss of composure just now. Haru felt a bit regretful. The girl's embrace was too wonderful. Especially the embrace of such innocent girls. It was a pity he could only enjoy it for a brief moment. Seeing the two's shy appearance, Haru, having learned from his experience with Rika Takanashi, knew not to tease them too much, so he deliberately changed the subject. "You two were actually eavesdropping outside. We just happened to overhear, Haru." Fumino Furuashi awkwardly explained, then after a while, took a deep breath, raised her head with slightly red cheeks. "Haru, we really appreciate your trust. We definitely won't let you down." "That's right." Rizu Ogata had also recovered somewhat from her shy emotions, her beautiful eyes shining with brilliant light. "Haru, I absolutely won't disappoint your trust today. Please don't worry." Looking at the two girls who were suppressing their inner shyness yet still mustering courage to express their determination, Haru couldn't help but smile. "Since you're both so determined, I won't say any more unnecessary words. You're both clear about the current situation. You must achieve passing scores in your respective subjects before the midterm exam. So starting today, not a minute or second can be wasted. All free time must be utilized." "Yes. I understand." Both nodded heavily, expressing their determination. "The tutoring I promised you will start after school." Haru also knew clearly that even with his cheats, getting the two to reach their goals wouldn't be without difficulty. Don't underestimate it just being passing grades for all subjects. Liberal arts and science subjects were numerous, and the two were terrifyingly poor in fields they weren't good at. Being able to achieve this goal would already be quite good. So the goal Haru set was just passing, not higher scores, otherwise it would really be uncertain. For the sake of bond values, Haru was really going all out. He immediately decided how to tutor the two. "After school, come to classroom 3306. That's where my club is located. We'll have tutoring there without anyone disturbing us." "Okay. Understood." Fumino Furuashi and Rizu Ogata now trusted Haru completely. They agreed to his suggestion without even thinking. After discussing with the two, Haru returned to his classroom to prepare for their tutoring. Since he had promised to help the two improve their grades, his own level had to be raised quickly as well. In one afternoon, using his talents of photographic memory and super thinking, he memorized all the content from the textbooks and gained deep understanding of it. He barely listened to class at all. Having cheats is really amazing. Haru finished reading the last book. The dismissal bell had already rung long ago, and everyone in the classroom had left. A smile couldn't help but appear on his face. With the help of cheats, Haru's level had already improved tremendously. If he took an exam now, Haru was confident that while he might not get perfect scores in all subjects, he could easily achieve over 90 points in all subjects. Liberal arts might be a bit troublesome, but for English and science subjects, Getting perfect scores would absolutely be no problem. Let's go to the club room. Only then did Haru notice that the agreed tutoring time had arrived. He was preparing to get up and head to the club room when he noticed that there were still two familiar people in the classroom, Rika Takanashi and Megumi Kato. Megumi Kato was cleaning, obviously she was on duty today. Rika Takanashi was a bit strange though. She was secretly glancing at Haru from afar, but immediately turned her head away when Haru looked at her. Very awkward. Haru couldn't help but be amused. Rika Takanashi was still too shy from embarrassment to talk to him, but since she had obtained the club room, she was probably hesitating about whether to go to the club room with him. Kato-san, thank you so much for yesterday. However, Haru temporarily didn't go talk to Rika Takanashi, but greeted Megumi Kato instead. Seeing Megumi Kato, an idea formed in his mind. Haru, you already thanked me yesterday. Megumi Kato stopped what she was doing, her beautiful eyes looking at Haru with a hint of amusement. Just don't do that kind of thing anymore. Rika Takanashi, facing forward, couldn't see what was happening behind her. Hearing their conversation, her face immediately fell. A trace of jealousy and concern flowed through her gem-like beautiful eyes. How could there be yet another girl? In less than a day, while she wasn't around, two girls with good relationships had appeared around Haru one after another. He clearly calls me teacher, but he's actually getting intimate with other girls. Rika Takanashi pouted, extremely unhappy. But the next moment, Rika Takanashi didn't have the mind to worry about Haru getting to know another beautiful girl. Otherwise, Ogata-san would be heartbroken. Megumi Kato added with a seemingly casual teasing remark while smiling. Rika Takanashi's nerves immediately tensed up. She was also very concerned about this issue. Was this guy Haru really dating Rizu Ogata? Kato-san, are you also gossiping like the other students? Haru smiled bitterly. I'm not dating Ogata-san. I'm just tutoring her, so our relationship is relatively good. Not dating? Hearing this, Rika Takanashi's eyes lit up, and joy immediately overflowed on her pretty face. Megumi Kato was stunned for a moment, then inexplicably felt relieved. But immediately after, she froze. Just now, she seemed to have heard something incredible. Haru, tutoring Ogata-san? Megumi Kato stared blankly at Haru. She suspected she had misheard something important. Chapter 25, Inviting Megumi Kato. Is Haru two-timing three girls? That's right. Haru said nonchalantly, I tutor her, and she takes care of my lunch bento as payment. Megumi Kato fell silent again. She didn't understand. It wasn't that she looked down on Haru. The problem was that Rizu Ogata was a science genius, a legendary honor student. How could she possibly ask Haru for tutoring? Seeing Megumi Kato's strange expression, Haru immediately knew what this girl was thinking. He didn't plan to tell Megumi Kato that he was now a super scholar. After all, before his grades came out, saying this would make people think he was bragging. Haru didn't want to be seen as someone who brags, so he casually said, actually, I'm tutoring her in liberal arts subjects. Although Ogata-san's science grades are excellent, her liberal arts grades are quite pitiful. I see. Megumi Kato felt this explanation made sense. But it was still a bit strange. After all, Haru's grades were what they were, and he had been hospitalized for a month. Even if Rizu Ogata needed liberal arts tutoring, she could find classmates or other liberal arts scholars. Yet she chose Haru, whose grades weren't that outstanding. Perhaps Ogata-san's tutoring is fake, and wanting to spend time with Haru is real. Moreover, bringing bento to Haru probably means Ogata-san really likes Haru. Megumi Kato looked deeply at Haru, developing quite a misunderstanding. Let's not talk about that. Kato-san, have you joined any clubs? Haru looked at Megumi Kato and got to business. Haru had previously promised Shizuka Hiratsuka that he would recruit 2 new club members within a week. Originally, Haru planned to follow the original plot, having Rika Takanashi bring Sani Dikamori, then use Sani Dikamori to recruit the class president into the Chuunibyou club. But now that Haru had made a military pledge to Mifagirasu, he temporarily didn't have time to deal with other Chuunibyou, so he decided to directly attract acquaintances to join the Chuunibyou club. And Megumi Kato was the person Haru had chosen. He felt that with Megumi Kato's low presence, she very likely hadn't joined any clubs. Not yet. Sure enough, Megumi Kato's answer was as Haru expected. She showed an embarrassed expression. It's a bit strange to say, but my presence is rather weak, and I'm often overlooked by everyone. The club application forms I submit often get no response either. Haru found it amusing. It was one thing for her personally, but even her club application forms got overlooked. That was really something else. In that case, why don't you join our Far East Magic Society, Kato-san? Haru smiled slightly and decisively extended the invitation. Our club doesn't have many club activities. You can go straight home after school every day, no problem. Far East Magic Society? Megumi Kato looked at Haru. What a strange name. You could tell it was related to Chuunibyou just by hearing it. Megumi Kato was immediately interested. After all, she also had to join a club to comply with school regulations. Besides, being in the same club as Haru seemed quite nice. As for other people's worry about being associated with Chuunibyou, Megumi Kato wasn't concerned. Because of her terrifyingly low presence, she was actually isolated and helpless at school, with basically no one discussing her. So she wasn't worried about her reputation declining. Since it's Haru's invitation, I'll respectfully accept. Megumi Kato thought about it, then finally raised her head, showing a smile on her pretty face and winking. Please take care of me, Haru. TSK, Saint Megumi's wink was quite cute. Haru sighed in admiration, then said to Rika Takanashi, who had been eavesdropping in front, President, I've already found a new member. Come meet her. Rika Takanashi almost immediately turned around. Her cute eyes were full of resentment as she stared at Haru without speaking. Inviting new club members without even consulting her, the president's opinion. Who exactly was the president here? However, Haru actively talking to her made Rika Takanashi somewhat happy. She only hesitated slightly before walking over to Megumi Kato. She examined this beautiful girl in front of her who looked cute, had a graceful figure, and a somewhat emotionless aura. She immediately felt somewhat concerned. Compared to this Megumi Kato in front of her, she felt like she severely lacked feminine charm. Full of crisis awareness. However, thinking that she was a new club member after all, Rika Takanashi still extended her hand in welcome. I am the Wicked Eye Master, Rika Takanashi. Welcome to our club. Hello, President Takanashi. I'm Megumi Kato. You can just call me Megumi. Megumi Kato didn't show the same snake-avoiding horror that other students had toward Rika Takanashi, but greeted her with a peaceful smile. Hearing Megumi Kato call her president, Rika Takanashi's eyes lit up, and her small face immediately turned rosy. Happy and proud. This was a good subordinate. Immediately, Rika Takanashi developed a favorable impression of Megumi Kato. Haru looked at Megumi Kato, who had easily figured out how to handle Rika Takanashi. His expression was strange. Worthy of being Saint Megumi. Rika Takanashi was at least 10 levels below Saint Megumi. The three came to the club room. Unexpectedly, Fumino Furuashi and Rizogata were already at the door. These two celebrities had obviously underestimated their own influence. Each person's fame was considerable, let alone when the two gathered together. As soon as Haru arrived, he discovered that many students were secretly poking their heads out from the windows of surrounding club rooms, sneaking glances at these two beautiful girls. Students passing by couldn't help but steal glances at the two. Seeing this scene, Haru suddenly had an ominous premonition. The next moment, when Fumino Furuashi and Rizogata, who were waiting, saw Haru, their eyes lit up. They immediately rushed over and stopped in front of Haru. Haru, you're here. Both looked at Haru with reverent eyes, calling out his name in unison. This scene stunned both Rika Takanashi and Megumi Kato. It left the surrounding students completely dumbfounded. Because these two beautiful girls looked exactly like legendary simps. Instantly, countless murderous gazes fell on Haru. Am I seeing this wrong? That man actually has the favor of both the literary Sleeping Beauty and Thumbelina at the same time. Who the hell is this guy? The initial discussions went like this. But soon, they changed to this. Could he be two-timing them both? Terrible. What a playboy. Hearing these words, Haru's face darkened. He knew it. This was a mistake. He shouldn't have let these two wait for him at the club room entrance. The two people beside Haru were also shocked at the moment. Megumi Kato was surprised that besides Rizogata, there was another great beauty who also worshipped Haru so much. But this also made her more certain that Rizogata had feelings for Haru. Romantic feelings between a man and woman. Having Haru help Rizogata study was completely an excuse. Rika Takanashi's small face fell. If before she only felt that her kind might be taken away, seeing this scene, she felt that Haru was about to be taken away. Her eyes were full of anxiety and worry. Her small face was pale as she couldn't help but tug at Haru's clothes. Of course, Rika Takanashi and Haru had only known each other for such a short time that it hadn't reached the level of love. At most there was some innocent affection. She was worried about Haru being taken away because he was the only one of her kind at school. She didn't want to become alone. However, outsiders didn't know this situation. What they saw was this: beside Haru, an intimate purple-haired, blue-eyed cute girlfriend. Suddenly seeing two beautiful girls running to find Haru. Instantly her face turned pale, tears welling up, looking pitiful like a pure girl who discovered her boyfriend cheating. Scumbag, it's not just two-timing, but three-timing. Unforgivable. Popular guys should die. What had originally been whispered voices became loud condemnation. Haru found that he had inexplicably become the target of everyone. What the hell? Who did I offend? Hee hee. At this time, a mocking laugh came from nearby. Haru looked over and became even more depressed. He saw Yukino Shita looking at him with a gloating expression. Others didn't know the situation. But Yukino Shita knew that Fumino Furuashi and Rizu Ogata were studying together with Haru. She of course knew most clearly that Haru was innocent and had just suffered an undeserved disaster. However, she wouldn't help Haru explain. After all, she and Haru had the grudge of him taking her club room. She actually felt happy about Haru being despised by everyone now. Serves you right for stealing my club room. Yukino Shita was quite vindictive. Seeing Yukino Shita's gloating appearance, Haru took a deep breath, then showed a smile on his face as he looked at Yukino Shita. Gloating, huh? Then don't blame me. Wicked Eye. Chapter 26, Rumors become even more outrageous. Yukino Shita vows revenge. Heterochromia activated. Instantly, Haru got a knifeful. Skin crystal clear as jade. A slender waist that could be held in one grasp. Long, straight, beautiful legs. Although a bit flat. But flaws don't overshadow virtues. The depression in his heart immediately disappeared. He had to admit, this girl's figure was quite good. The smile on Yukino Shita's face immediately froze. Then her pretty face turned completely red, her delicate body tensing up. Seeing those pupils releasing heterochromatic light, how could she not understand what was happening? She covered her body with both hands, glaring at Haru in embarrassed anger, unable to help but unleash a series of sharp remarks. Hentai, shameless, brazen guy, close your eyes. You really do like cats. This time it's a Persian cat. Haru looked at the extremely embarrassed and annoyed Yukino Shita with a half smile. That's what you get for gloating earlier. You woo. Hearing this, Yukino Shita's cheeks were already red as hot iron as she glared fiercely at Haru. She felt somewhat regretful in her heart. If she had known this guy Haru was so shameless, she shouldn't have gloated and laughed mockingly. But it was too late to regret now. Seeing the light still flickering in Haru's pupils, Yukino Shita felt her whole body burning hot and didn't dare stay in place for another moment. Immediately, she disappeared from the classroom entrance as if fleeing. Leaving only an extremely resentful threat. Hentai, you remember this? Haru chuckled. He didn't care about Yukino Shita's little threat. Who told you to gloat and mock me? Seeing Yukino Shita get her comeuppance, the depression in his heart immediately dissipated by more than half. However, what Haru didn't expect was that Yukino Shita's earlier red-faced conversation with him appeared to the surrounding students like flirting between lovers. Instantly, the male students' gazes at Haru had already transcended anger. Each one's eyes turned red with envy, jealousy, and hatred. Even Yukino Shita. It's not just 3 timing, but 4 timing. No wait, did you notice? This guy has another very kawaii beautiful girl beside him. That's 5 timing. My god, this guy is just too enviable. No, too detestable. No matter how low Megumi Kato's presence was, with so many students around, someone was bound to notice her. Thus, the surrounding rumors escalated even further. Haru became even more depressed hearing this. It was easy to get revenge on Yukino Shita, but clearing up rumors was difficult. Forget it, if they want to call me a scumbag, then so be it. Haru sighed. He was tired. Let it all be destroyed. Let the rumors spread however they wanted. The mouths were on his face. Why should he care? After the group entered the club room, the environment finally quieted down. Inside the club room, after Haru's explanation, Rika Takanashi and Megumi Kato finally understood the whole story. Sorry, Takanashi-san, Kato-san, and Haru. Both Fumino Furuashi and Rizu Ogata obediently bowed their heads in apology. Their faces were as red as monkey butts. The discussions outside hadn't been concealed at all, so how could they not understand that because of them, Haru had been misunderstood and Rika Takanashi and Megumi Kato had been implicated? Both felt very guilty, but more than that, they were embarrassed. After all, being misunderstood as Haru's girlfriends was far too embarrassing for 2 pure girls with no romantic experience. It's okay, the Wicked Eye Master forgives you. Hearing that the 3 were just study group classmates, the worry on Rika Takanashi's pretty face immediately disappeared, and she breathed a heavy sigh of relief. As long as they weren't here to steal Haru away, that was good. Looking at the 2, her gaze no longer held such hostility. Furuashi-san, Ogata-san, there's no need to apologize. It's just a misunderstanding. Megumi Kato smiled slightly, speaking as if she didn't mind. She just looked deeply at Haru. Let's start tutoring, Furuashi-san, Ogata-san. Haru didn't explain further. Time was pressing. He had no time to care about gossip. He had to start tutoring the 2 immediately. Of course, with his eyes closed. Right now, Every second counted. He had to get the best tutoring talent as quickly as possible. At first, Haru closed his eyes. Fumino Furuashi and Rizuogata noticed but didn't mind. They thought Haru's eyes were just tired and he wanted to rest. But soon, they discovered something shocking. Haru was tutoring them with his eyes closed from beginning to end, never opening them once. Even more outrageous was that his teaching wasn't affected at all. He could recite the course content almost backwards. He could even clearly state which page and which line certain content was on. Could it be that Haru has memorized all the textbooks? Both were shocked. Such memory was simply incredible. No wonder Haru's grades improved so quickly. Both felt delighted. They became even more confident that Haru could help improve their grades. Even their gazes at Haru became more worshipful. Night. In Yukino Shita's bedroom. Hentai, shameless, brazen, Haru, I won't forget this grudge. Yukino Shita, wearing pajamas with flushed cheeks, was gritting her teeth as she crouched in front of her drawer, searching through all her cat-patterned panties. Because of Haru's comment during the day, "You really do like cats," she knew that she had been seen through again today. Combined with the previous time when her cat pattern was also seen, Yukino Shita was so embarrassed and furious that she wanted to throw away all her cat-patterned panties. No, if I do this, wouldn't I be admitting I'm afraid of him? However, Yukino Shita soon realized that doing this was somewhat foolish. It definitely wasn't because she couldn't bear to throw away so many cute styles that she had worked hard to buy. Yukino Shita clenched her silver teeth. Rather than doing such weak things, it's better to wait until 2 weeks later and reclaim the club room fair and square. So far, she had suffered losses in front of Haru. This grievance was really hard to swallow. But for the bet 2 weeks from now, she had absolute confidence in victory. There was absolutely no possibility of losing to Haru. When that day comes, I must let that shameless guy know what it means to get what he deserves. Yukino Shita was extremely vindictive. If she didn't get back at him for today's humiliation, she wouldn't be able to sleep. Oh right, that guy knows quite a few cute girls. When that day comes, I might be able to gather all those girls he's familiar with. Let those girls see clearly how this guy loses to me and loses all face. Yukino Shita firmly believed that for males of this age, losing face in front of females, especially cute females, was definitely a huge blow. This is a good idea. Thinking of this, Yukino Shita's eyes lit up, feeling even more that her idea was correct. Her exquisite pretty face couldn't help but show an expectant smile, almost unable to wait to see that day arrive. Chapter 27, Level 2 Authority, accidentally pinning Bocce against the wall as expected, Haru's reputation as a scumbag was confirmed. Yukino Shita, Fumino Furuashi, and Rizuogata. These 3 honor students had extraordinary fame at Sobu High and received attention from the entire school. The fact that Haru was supposedly cheating on these 3 beautiful girls resulted in imaginable hatred and jealousy. Not to mention that among those he was supposedly cheating on were 2 other extremely cute beautiful girls, though not as famous as the first 3. From the second day onward, wherever Haru walked in school, he could feel the red eyes of surrounding males. His already poor reputation instantly fell to rock bottom, with everyone looking at him like they'd seen a plague god. Haru was naturally too lazy to care about such nonsense. He focused wholeheartedly on practicing his punches, then tutoring Fumino Furuashi and Rizuogata, trying to upgrade his system as quickly as possible. As Haru's punch count increased, he clearly felt the power contained in his flesh becoming increasingly formidable. At the same time, his skin membrane seemed to become significantly more solid, and his recovery power became stronger. From the 5th day onward, when he used his fists to strike the wall, after 40 punches, he wouldn't be injured at all. My strength growth has a flavor of body tempering from fantasy novels. During his free time, Haru would also take time to familiarize himself with his power and think about the essence of his strength. Haru was very clear that while his system was indeed a bug, he couldn't rely entirely on the system. Only by fully understanding the system could he enhance himself more efficiently. This process of improving his strength was, for him, a process where he could clearly understand how the system operated. The system's enhancement is gradual. Haru concluded that the system wasn't making him reach the sky in one step, but rather letting his power grow step by step. Growing in stages. Perhaps I can use this point to make my strength more systematic too. Haru felt that he couldn't just mindlessly enhance himself, otherwise the power he gained would lack a solid foundation. There might not be any problems visible now, but after he became powerful, issues would become apparent. It would be best to wait for the system to upgrade and use a more systematic approach to enhance his strength in stages. And Haru had a vague idea about systematic enhancement methods. However, right now it was just an idea. In the end, he still had to get this mission's reward first. With Haru focusing wholeheartedly on completing his task, time flashed by, and in the blink of an eye, it was the 10th day. In the club room. Boom. With one punch, the air actually produced a huge explosive sound, blowing the books and papers in the classroom flying everywhere. Strength of 1 ox, finally obtained. Haru's eyes glowed as he felt unprecedentedly powerful. A mere classroom wall. As long as he was willing, he could easily punch through it at any time. The bet with Yukino Shido was now completely off Haru's mind. He was just waiting for a few days later to give Yukino Shido a surprise. Strength of 1 ox. In the martial arts system, even those so-called transformation masters might not possess such great power. A smile appeared on Haru's face. He had to admit that having power in the flesh, this sense of reality, was more tangible and more intoxicating than extraordinary skills like heterochromia and photographic memory. No wonder there was such a thing as martial arts fanatics. From now on, I truly possess a certain degree of self-protection power. Haru's eyes flickered. Strength of 1 ox was power that surpassed human limits and could definitely be called extraordinary. Of course, strength of 1 ox was nothing compared to modern technological weapons. So after Haru felt briefly proud, he clearly realized that in terms of self-protection abilities, he still needed to continue improving. The stronger the better. It would be best if he could become so strong that he could give Earth a middle part with one punch. Only then could he feel slightly at ease. Of course, becoming that powerful was still too distant. With Haru's current level 2 system authority, it was far from enough. Yes, Haru's system authority had already been upgraded to level 2. As early as last week, Haru had obtained the best tutoring talent, and now that strength of 1 ox was complete, he had met the upgrade requirements. The authority upgrade first expanded the suggestion list capacity from a maximum of 3 suggestions to 5 suggestions. Second, the upper limit of suggestion rewards was also improved. From the information transmitted by the system, Haru already knew that strength of 1 ox was actually the upper limit for level 1 authority physical enhancement. At level 1 authority, he could at most obtain rewards of the same level, and it was impossible to exceed this degree. But at level 2 authority, the upper limit had increased by more than 100-fold. In other words, if Haru wanted, he could receive rewards for obtaining the strength of 1,000 oxen. However, Haru wasn't foolish enough to do that. Pure strength didn't need to be increased for now. He already had some ideas about enhancing his abilities, and it wasn't just about strengthening power. He wanted to enhance himself comprehensively. Grumble. Just then, his stomach suddenly made a thunderous sound. Strength improvement isn't just benefits for me. Haru sighed and touched his stomach. During these days of practicing punches, as his strength improved, his appetite had also dramatically increased. Previously, 1 bowl of rice per meal was enough, but now 5 bowls of rice per meal was just the starting point. More than rice, his demand for meat was extremely high. As my physical strength increases, my food requirements will definitely grow more and more in the future. The savings that could originally support me until high school graduation are probably far from enough now. Haru knew that with his current appetite, he had to find a way to make money, otherwise he would starve to death if this continued. He'd deal with making money tomorrow. Tonight, he should fill his stomach first. His stomach was famished, so Haru decided to go to the barbecue restaurant in the food street tonight for a big meal to reward himself for the successful system upgrade. He closed the clubroom door, left the school directly, and headed straight for the subway entrance, planning to go to the food street just a few stops away. Who knew, even though Haru was already quite late leaving school, it was still rush hour at the subway entrance. Besides a considerable number of students, there were also many office workers getting off work. Even with the strength of 1 ox, Haru barely managed to squeeze in and maintain his footing. So difficult. Haru braced his arm against the subway wall and had just breathed a sigh of relief when he looked up to see a face full of terror looking at him. Only then did he realize that in front of him was a petite girl. And his action of bracing against the wall to maintain his stance looked somewhat like forcibly pinning this girl against the wall. No wonder the girl looked terrified. Haru felt a bit awkward, not expecting that he had unknowingly played the role of someone forcibly pinning a girl against the wall. Just as he was about to apologize, he suddenly felt that the girl in front of him looked familiar. Pink long hair, and under her bangs, a pair of beautiful blue pupils were faintly visible. Her features were well proportioned, her skin fair and delicate, and her face was quite cute. However, regrettably, she wore an outdated pink tracksuit on her upper body, and combined with her somewhat weak aura, she gave off a rather pitiful feeling. This familiar sense of déjà vu made Haru quickly think of her identity. And at the same time, ding, discovered a person qualified for suggestions, Hattori Goto. The system notification also sounded simultaneously. Chapter 28, Negative Effects of Extraordinary Physique, Bachi-chan, a popular life is beckoning me. Hattori Goto. the protagonist of Bocce the Rock, better known by her famous nickname, Bocce-chan. Seeing that the girl he had pinned against the wall was Bocce-chan, and seeing her terrified expression, Haru couldn't help but find it amusing. Remembering Bocce-chan's timid personality, Haru thought that even if he actually took advantage of her, she probably wouldn't dare to speak up. However, Haru wasn't about to bully the cute Bocce-chan. Before his transmigration, after becoming an office worker, he hadn't watched much anime, but Bocce the Rock was one of the last new anime series that left a deep impression on him. He really liked Bocce-chan, the female protagonist. How could he bear to bully her? Sorry, Godo-san, there are too many people here. Haru smiled slightly, showing an apologetic smile to avoid scaring her. It's okay. Hearing Haru speak, Bocce-chan's delicate body trembled, obviously startled, then she answered, stammering in a voice as low as a mosquito's buzz. But immediately after, she stared at Haru with disbelieving wide eyes, as if asking, "You actually know me?" As a super socially anxious person, since entering high school, Bocce-chan had barely communicated with any classmates. She thought no one at school would know her. But unexpectedly, someone called out her surname, and it was an overwhelmingly handsome guy at that. "Of course I know you. After all, Godo-san is so cute and quite famous at school." Haru knew what Bocce-chan was thinking without even looking and said teasingly. Although Bocce-chan wore a pink tracksuit on her upper body, her lower half's short skirt was obviously in Sobuhai's style. Therefore, even though Haru had never seen Bocce-chan at Sobuhai before, he knew she was a student there. Cute? Someone actually praised me as cute. Hee hee. Hee hee hee. Hee hee hee. Hearing Haru's praise, Bocce-chan was stunned for a moment, her small face turning red. Then her eyes narrowed into crescents as she touched the back of her head and giggled foolishly. Since childhood, this was the first time a classmate had praised her as cute. And it was a handsome guy praising her cuteness. As a socially anxious person, Bocce-chan naturally couldn't recognize Haru, even though he had been somewhat famous recently. Precisely because she had never been praised, when Bocce-chan was complimented even a little, she would become unable to control herself and get carried away. Completely ignoring the situation. Seeing Bocce-chan like this, Haru couldn't help but find it amusing. However, he also knew that it was rare for Bocce-chan to be happy, so he didn't need to interrupt her moment of getting carried away. Let her enjoy herself for a while. Just then, Haru couldn't help but frown. Having just stopped talking with Bocce-chan, Haru realized something was wrong. Due to his physical transformation, his 5 senses had also become much stronger. Vision, hearing, smell. All far surpassed what they were before. Having stronger senses was certainly beneficial, making his abilities more powerful. But the problem was that stronger senses didn't just bring him benefits. They also brought negative effects. For instance, right now in the subway, his enhanced sense of smell was causing him tremendous suffering. Various odors from surrounding passengers kept flooding into his nostrils. Perfume, body odor, air freshener, even smelly socks. So many smells mixed together. The torture he experienced was unimaginable. Simply horrifying. No good, I need to find a way to gain voluntary control over my 5 senses, especially get the skill to control my sense of smell as soon as possible. Haru's expression was grim. He had to take the subway every day. If he had to endure this torture every time he took the subway, how unbearable would that be? Just as Haru was suffering tremendously, he suddenly heard a trembling apologetic voice. Sorry, I got too carried away, please forgive me." Haru was stunned and looked up to see Bocce-chan with a pale face, looking at him with terror, tears almost welling up in her eyes, her slender legs trembling non-stop as she frantically apologized to him. Haru was puzzled. "Why are you apologizing to me? This girl was way too timid." Bocce-chan weakly looked up at Haru, tearfully apologizing. Your expression looks so terrible, it must be because I got too carried away earlier and made you angry. For a maggot like me to be so presumptuous in front of a handsome guy like you, I truly deserve death. Please forgive me." As she spoke, Haru saw that Bocce-chan actually wanted to bow and apologize to him. But because the distance between them was too short, when she suddenly bowed, her head hit Haru's chest. With his now thick skin and tough flesh, Haru didn't feel much. Ouch! But Bocce-chan covered her head in pain, tearfully realizing she had caused a big disaster. She showed an expression of utter despair and apologized to Haru. "So sorry, after we get off the train, I will definitely commit seppuku to apologize to you." It's not because of Godo-san." Haru was speechless. What was this situation? He never intended to bully Bocce-chan, but her behavior made it seem like he was bullying her. Even more ridiculous was that Haru actually felt a bit guilty about it. Although Bachi-chan's pitiful state was entirely due to her own imagination, it was also because she saw Haru's expression that she became like this. Haru felt he should find a topic to divert Bachi-chan's attention. Otherwise, if people around saw this situation, they might think Haru was really bullying the girl, and it would be troublesome if someone called the police. At this moment, Haru had a thought. Remembering what he was troubled about, he suddenly thought that perhaps he could discuss this topic. Firstly, to divert Bachi-chan's attention, and secondly, perhaps this girl who was good at overthinking could give him some advice? So Haru smiled slightly and said to Bachi-chan, "Godo-san, actually it's because my sense of smell is too sensitive and I can smell too many odors in the air, which makes me physically uncomfortable. That's why my expression looked bad earlier. Godo-san, could you give me some advice? If your nose could smell too many strange odors, what would you do to not feel uncomfortable?" Bachi-chan was initially still frightened, but hearing Haru's question, she immediately perked up. The super socially anxious Bachi-chan dreamed of being able to meet other classmates at school and make good friends. Now finally a classmate, and a handsome guy at that, was communicating with her and asking for her opinion. Her eyes immediately lit up. "Go for it, Bachi-chan, this is an opportunity." Bachi-chan excitedly clenched her small hands, cheering herself on internally, and began to let her imagination run wild. "As long as I can give a perfect answer and gain this classmate's recognition, I'll be able to successfully become friends with him. They say online that at school, handsome guys are the top-tier big shots. As long as you can meet one handsome guy, you don't have to worry about not making friends. That means, as long as I can successfully become friends with such a handsome guy, I'll have the chance to make more friends in the future, move toward a popular life, and then successfully enter society." In an instant, Bachi-chan went from making friends with Haru to imagining herself after graduation, becoming a celebrity welcomed by the whole world. "So I must seize this opportunity," ganbat Bachi-chan. Chapter 29, Extraordinary Sense of Smell. Forced to bully Bachi-chan thinking of that wonderful future, Bachi-chan immediately resolved to give the most perfect answer to this question. The socially anxious Bachi-chan never thought about how strange Haru's question was, nor would she know that Haru had a terrible reputation at school, and becoming friends with him would actually implicate her. At this moment, wholeheartedly wanting to become friends with Haru and move toward a popular life, Bachi-chan immediately racked her brains thinking about the answer to this question. "I've got it." Soon, her eyes lit up as she thought of an answer. For a moment, she seemed to see a popular life beckoning to her. Her face became extremely excited as she hurriedly looked at Haru. That." Bachi-chan raised her small hand and answered in a voice so low that only Haru could hear, "If your sense of smell is too sensitive, you just need to smell the scent you think is the best, right?" She carefully glanced up at Haru, then nervously lowered her head again and added, "Also, staying close to places with good smells and away from those pungent odors is also a good method." Having said everything she could think of in one breath, Bachi-chan breathed a sigh of relief. Then she nervously clenched her small hands, her heart pounding as she pricked up her ears, her eyes full of expectation. It seemed like whether she could achieve her popular life depended on this moment. Haru's expression was strange as he looked at Bachi-chan speechlessly. He hadn't expected that Bachi-chan's suggestion would actually be accepted by the system. But this time, the suggestion that was accepted was quite outrageous. Ding! Suggestion obtained. Suggestion: embrace Bachi-chan and smell the fragrance on her body. Duration: 10 minutes. Required time: 1 week. Reward: extraordinary sense of smell. Control your own or enemy's sense of smell. How did such a ridiculous suggestion form? Haru wanted to cough up blood. But soon, he understood that this system's suggestion wasn't randomly made up. Because Bachi-chan's suggestion was to only smell the scent that Haru thought was the best. And in this stinking subway, the scent that Haru currently found most pleasant came from the fragrance of the girl in front of him. Naturally, the system determined that the fragrance on Bachi-chan was the scent Haru currently considered most pleasant. And Bachi-chan also suggested getting close to the place that emitted the best scent. This suggestion was also adopted by the system, turning into embracing Bachi-chan. Embracing could certainly be considered getting close. Haru understood. Understood my ass. What kind of perverted suggestion was this? Haru didn't want to be seen as a pervert. To embrace a super socially anxious person he'd just met for 10 minutes. And for a whole week. Anyone would be considered a hentai for this. But thinking about his terrifyingly sensitive sense of smell, Haru felt somewhat depressed. However, the reward this time made Haru extremely tempted. Extraordinary sense of smell. This ability was much more powerful than Haru's current enhanced sense of smell from his physical transformation. It was more than one level higher. If Haru could currently smell scents within a 10-meter radius, then with the extraordinary sense of smell ability, he could easily smell scents within a 5-kilometer radius. and through scents, he could lock onto targets, being more sensitive than a dog's nose. Moreover, Haru could freely control his own sense of smell and no longer worry about smelling various odors. Even more outrageous was that he could control enemies' sense of smell and block their senses. What a bug ability this was. I shall stand in the heavens. This was the ability of Aizen, the one who said such famous words. Although Aizen's Kyokusuagetsu controlled all 5 senses and Haru's only controlled 1 sense, it could still be considered a simplified version of Kyokusuagetsu. If Haru could obtain the other 4 abilities to control the 5 senses in the future, wouldn't he be equivalent to Aizen? Invincibility seemed within reach. Bocchi-chan, what am I supposed to do with you? Haru looked at Bocchi-chan helplessly. Honestly, he really didn't want to bully this socially anxious girl. The problem was that this reward was just too bug-like. No one could refuse it. Without hesitating too long, Haru decided to go against his conscience and get this reward. As for Bocchi-chan, he could just compensate her after getting the reward. Bocchi-chan wanted to achieve a popular life, so he would help her realize her dream. Anyway, after he became powerful in the future, these would all be things he could easily accomplish. Bocchi-chan. Having made up his mind, Haru looked at Bocchi-chan with sincere eyes. This suggestion was a bit unethical, but Haru didn't want Bocchi-chan to feel bullied, so he decided to use some linguistic techniques to make Bocchi-chan less concerned. After all, being embraced for 10 minutes every day for a week, in exchange for a successful life. Such a choice was ultimately more beneficial for Bocchi-chan. When Bocchi-chan grew up in the future, she wouldn't blame him either. Thinking this way, Haru became more at ease with his upcoming plan that carried a hint of manipulation. Hearing Haru suddenly call her Bocchi-chan, Bocchi-chan's delicate body shrank dramatically, and she became completely unnatural. Calling me by my name on the first day we met. The super socially anxious Bocchi-chan really couldn't handle such familiar people. But seeing that handsome face in front of her and those focused eyes, she couldn't help but nervously blush, with white steam rising from her head. Bocchi-chan, your suggestion is very good. I can see that you're seriously thinking for my sake. Haru smiled slightly, then with an extremely serious expression said, from now on, we're friends. Friends? Bocchi-chan was stunned, then her delicate body shivered, her eyes immediately widened, showing an incredulous joyful expression. I succeeded? I became friends with a handsome guy at school. Popular. I'm going to become popular. Bocchi-chan's heart was pounding. Her small face was flushed with excitement. Stars appeared in her eyes as countless beautiful scenes began floating in her mind. Her petite body trembled with excitement. But Haru looked at the fantasizing Bocchi-chan, coughed, and interrupted her imagination. Bocchi-chan immediately tensed up and nervously looked at Haru. But what? Bocchi-chan had never felt that a popular life was so close to her. She was afraid of missing this opportunity. Thinking about what he was about to say, Haru's face still turned red. After all, it was somewhat hentai no matter how you looked at it. Especially for a girl. But thinking about this reward, Haru's face reddened as he thickened his skin and said, Bocchi-chan, the problem is that right now, the best scent I can smell is the fragrance on your body. Only by embracing you can I become immune to the surrounding odors. So. Before he could finish speaking, Haru saw that Bocchi-chan had turned into a completely red-cooked shrimp. Her fair skin was filled with pink. Steam was rolling from her head. Her eyes became spiral-shaped. Her body kept trembling. The sound of her heartbeat was so loud that even Haru could hear it. Obviously, Haru's words were far too stimulating for Bocchi-chan, a socially anxious girl who had barely spoken to boys since childhood. So stimulating that her little heart was about to explode. Chapter 30, Bocchi-chan nearly ascends to heaven. Haru, I'm definitely not a pervert, Bocchi-chan. Haru waved his hand in front of Bocchi-chan's eyes. If this continued, he suspected Bocchi-chan might faint on the spot. However, after waving for a while, Bocchi-chan still didn't react. He said, if you don't answer, I'll take it as Bocchi-chan agreeing. Hearing this, Bocchi-chan's body trembled, and she immediately came back to her senses. With flushed cheeks, she stammered and waved her hands, no way, no way, no way, no way. If I'm embraced by a handsome guy, I'll die. Bocchi-chan wailed in her heart. She wondered if she had been away from society for too long. Had the outside world become so strange? A boy who proposed embracing a girl on their first meeting was way too weird. Bocchi-chan, who was too shy to even talk when in contact with girls, how could she dare agree to Haru's request? Just hearing such words made her so shy that her heart was about to explode. If she was actually embraced, and by such a handsome guy as Haru, she would definitely die on the spot. Then her father, mother, and younger sister would grieve painfully in front of her black and white photo. At this moment, strange tragic scenes floated through Bocchi-chan's mind. Bocchi-chan, We're friends, right? At this moment, a voice awakened Bocce-chan from her tragic fantasies. She saw a pair of truly sincere, deceptive, beautiful eyes staring intently at her. Being gazed at by such eyes, Bocce-chan's heartbeat became even faster, and all the blood in her body began to boil. She felt like she was about to burst into flames. Friends. This was the word Bocce-chan had dreamed of hearing. For a moment, she couldn't help but be stunned. Since we're friends, you wouldn't want me to get sick and die because of my sense of smell, would you? Haru's acting skills came online as he showed Bocce-chan a pitiful expression. No, I can't let my friend die. Bocce-chan shivered. Yes, she had finally made the first friend of her life, and this friend's request was related to his very life. How could she refuse? If she did such a thing, what qualification would she have to make other friends? Everyone would look at her with contempt, and no one would ever want to be friends with her again. Thinking of such an absolutely tragic future, Bocce-chan couldn't help but shudder. Then, with an expression like the wind whistles and the Yi River runs cold, she looked at Haru with determination. I agree. Although she was resolute when making the decision, her voice became lower and lower, and finally her entire face turned as red as a boiling pot. Bocce-chan's heart was beating like a drum, white smoke billowed from her head, her body trembled non-stop, and she didn't dare look at Haru anymore. Finally succeeding in fooling Bocce-chan, Haru breathed a sigh of relief, while also feeling somewhat guilty about deceiving an innocent girl's feelings. But thinking about the system's reward, that little bit of guilt in his heart instantly vanished. Bocce-chan, I'm sorry for deceiving you this time, but I will definitely compensate you. I swear. Haru secretly resolved, then without any more hesitation, decisively reached out with both hands and embraced Bocce-chan's petite body in his arms. So light, so soft, so fragrant. Feeling the tense petite body of the girl in his arms, Haru's heart couldn't help but beat faster too. Although Bocce-chan was socially anxious, she was undoubtedly quite cute and a beautiful girl very attractive to boys. Because of his enhanced body, Haru's vitality far exceeded that of ordinary people. Being vigorous and energetic, his certain aspects had become more intense than before. Suddenly embracing such a soft, fragrant, petite girl, Haru couldn't help but feel his heart flutter, his mind wandering. His body felt a strong impulse to become even more intimate with the girl. No. Haru immediately calmed down. Embracing Bocce-chan was already bullying her. How could he further take advantage of her? No matter what, he had to have some bottom line. Thinking this way, Haru still restrained himself. The result was that these 10 minutes were even more difficult than Haru had imagined. 10 minutes passed. Haru breathed a sigh of relief and reluctantly released the girl from his arms. He felt that the torture he had endured for those 10 minutes was definitely no less difficult than what the constantly tense Bocce-chan had experienced. However, when he saw the girl whose eyes were already showing spiral patterns, with faint ghosts appearing above her head, completely red all over, he realized he had been overthinking. Bocce-chan, are you okay? Haru quickly placed his hands on Bocce-chan's shoulders and shook her vigorously to wake her up. After quite a while, Bocce-chan finally came to her senses. Her face was completely red as she lowered her head, completely unable to speak to Haru anymore. Bocce-chan, thank you for earlier. Let me treat you to dinner. Haru laughed dryly, knowing that what had just happened was probably the first time in Bocce-chan's life she'd experienced such stimulation, and he still wanted to compensate her. Who knew that upon hearing this, Bocce-chan's delicate body trembled violently, and she quickly raised her completely red face, saying weakly, I'm too tired and need to hurry home to recharge my energy. Those 10 minutes of embracing had made Bocce-chan feel like she almost ascended to heaven. How could she dare to have dinner with Haru? Alright. Haru didn't want to make things difficult for Bocce-chan. He understood her psychological endurance very well, so he smiled slightly. Then I'll treat you next time. Hearing Haru agree, Bocce-chan breathed a heavy sigh of relief and quickly nodded, as if afraid Haru would change his mind. Soon, Haru reached his station. After saying goodbye to Bocce-chan, he headed to the restaurant. Having been on the train for so long, he was famished to the point of dizziness. Meanwhile, Bocce-chan on the subway remained flushed and dizzy, swaying unsteadily all the way home. When she reached her front door, Bocce-chan suddenly raised her head, her beautiful eyes showing a dazed expression. Huh? What was that classmate's name? Then Bocce-chan let out an extremely shameful wail. She tragically realized that she didn't even know the name of the first friend she'd made in her life, and the first member of the opposite sex to embrace her. Haru walked out of the subway in an extremely pleasant mood. Although it was a bit improper, Haru had to admit that girls who were light, soft, and easy to push over were truly wonderful. Should I get a girlfriend too? Because of that one embrace with Bocce-chan, Haru felt the wonder of girls and couldn't help but let his imagination run wild. Even though Haru was currently focused entirely on the system, he was still a man after all. He had his own needs. Originally, Haru had temporarily ignored this aspect because he wanted to quickly improve his strength. But this physical enhancement had made his powerful instinctual desires finally impossible to suppress. Haru had to admit that he was now somewhat attracted to girls' bodies. There was nothing embarrassing about admitting this. A gentleman desires a beautiful lady. Although Haru realized he was attracted to girls and somewhat wanted to become the legendary lovey-dovey type, he didn't know who to pursue for the moment. There were certainly many beautiful girls around him, but none seemed to have reached the point where they could become a couple. However, Haru felt there were quite a few people around him who attracted him. Several figures couldn't help but float through his mind. Damn, Hirai is one thing, but why am I even thinking about Mifukirasu and Shizuka-sensei? Haru's face reddened. He discovered that in his mind, there were not only several beautiful girls he had good relationships with like Rikata Kanashi, Fumino Furuashi, Rizu Ogata, and Megumi Kato, as well as Bachi-chan whom he had just embraced once. Which was normal. The problem was that he had even thought of Hirai and two beautiful female teachers. Even more outrageous was that there was also a face similar to Yukino Shita's but more mature, with an extremely perfect figure. That beauty was someone Haru had met a few times when he was hospitalized. What a mess. Haru quickly shook his head, throwing these distracting thoughts out of his mind. He felt he had suddenly become too thirsty, actually wanting any woman. It must be because his physical instincts were too strong. It definitely wasn't because he was a pervert. Haru would never admit he was a pervert. He was forced into this. Yes, forced. Haru had always considered himself quite pure-hearted. How could he possibly like everyone he met? Kuhai-kun. At this moment, a pleasant voice came from not far away. Haru's keen senses detected a figure walking toward him. This voice seemed to be calling him. It sounded a bit familiar. Strange, am I hallucinating? Haru couldn't help but look up. Immediately, he saw that the figure was exactly the mature beauty who had flashed through his wandering thoughts earlier. Similar in appearance to Hirai but with an extremely perfect figure. At this moment, she was walking toward him with an enthusiastic smile, waving and saying, Kuhai-kun, over here, over here. It must be a hallucination. Haru looked at her strangely, suspecting that he had just thought too many random things and was having strong hallucinations. How could it be such a coincidence to meet that person? Just then, he noticed not far away, a straight black-haired beautiful girl with a sour face, surrounded by an ice-cold atmosphere, looking at him and the mature beauty approaching him with disgust. Not a hallucination? Haru was stunned. Chapter 31, Refusing Haruno Street, Haruno's Curiosity, Ding, discovered a person qualified for suggestions, Haruno Yukino-shita. The moment the notification sounded, Haru confirmed that the mature beauty appearing before him was not a hallucination, but the real Haruno Yukino-shita herself. And standing not far away with that disgusted expression was none other than Yukino. What a coincidence, Kuhai-kun. Haruno Yukino-shita's mature and beautiful face showed a bright smile as she maintained just the right distance from Haru. She couldn't let Haru take any advantage, but gave Haru the feeling that she was getting close to him. Even the scent of her perfume wafted over, making his nose tingle, giving him the feeling of a caring, beautiful neighborhood big sister. If it were an inexperienced boy encountering such a beauty, he would probably instantly develop feelings for her, start fantasizing, and even think of what to name their children. Of course, Haru wasn't that naive. He understood very well this woman named Haruno Yukino-shita. As the eldest daughter of the Yukino-shita family, raised from childhood as the heir, her appearance could be called an evolved version of Yukino-shita. Of course, her figure was even more perfect, especially that pair of ample assets that could make Yukino-shita cry. How formidable this woman was could be imagined from the fact that someone as excellent and proud as Yukino-shita had always used this sister as her standard and goal since childhood. Yes, Haruno-san, long time no see. Haru casually greeted her. Having met Haruno a few times during his hospitalization and having had conversations with her, Haru knew her. He certainly knew how formidable she was, but he wasn't particularly wary. After all, no matter how excellent Haruno Yukino-shita was, she was measured by ordinary human standards, which wasn't much in his eyes. Kuhai-kun, you just got out of school and should be here for dinner, right? I'm having dinner with Yukino too. Want to join us? Big sister will treat you. Haruno Yukino-shita smiled as she moved close to Haru's side, speaking in an alluring tone. No thanks. Because of my training, I need to consume large amounts of meat. The kind of upscale restaurants you go to won't fill me up. Haru directly refused. The places the Yukino-shita sisters went to eat would definitely be those high-end restaurants that emphasize delicate and refined dishes. He'd be lucky to get full there. If it were normal times, Haru might have been interested in freeloading a meal from this beauty Haruno, But now he was dizzy with hunger and just wanted to quickly get a good meal. He was too lazy to freeload. Kuhai-kun, big sister finally worked up the courage to invite you to dinner, but you're refusing. You're really breaking big sister's heart. Haruno Yukinoshita puffed out her cheeks, showing a hurt and disappointed expression on that perfect face, yet appearing unusually cute and full of feminine charm. If it were another man seeing Haruno show such an expression, he would probably immediately change his mind. However, Haru was already starving and just wanted to quickly replenish his nutrition. He showed an apologetic smile. Haruno-san, invite me again next time. Today really won't work. I'm leaving first, goodbye. After saying this, without waiting for Haruno Yukinoshita to respond further, he turned and headed toward his target barbecue restaurant. Seeing Haru leave without hesitation, Haruno Yukinoshita was stunned. She even began to doubt her own charm. Such a beauty like herself taking the initiative to invite someone to dinner, yet someone was willing to refuse. Not to mention she had also mentioned that her sister Yukino was there too. Suddenly, she glanced at Yukino Yukinoshita, who was waiting somewhat impatiently not far away. A thought occurred to her. Could it be that precisely because Yukino was there, Haru refused to stay with her? Kuhai-kun and Yukino's relationship really is problematic. Haruno Yukinoshita's beautiful eyes flickered as she remembered the intelligence a junior had recently passed to her about rumors at Sobuhaya regarding Haru and Yukino. Although Haruno Yukinoshita didn't believe those rumors, she was still very interested in the relationship between Haru and her sister. Now that she had finally encountered Haru, how could she easily miss this opportunity? No, I can't just let him leave like this. Looking at Haru's departing figure, Haruno's face showed a smile as a mischievous idea formed in her mind. Haru entered the all-you-can-eat barbecue restaurant and unceremoniously filled a table with various meat dishes. Smelling the tantalizing aroma, the glutton in Haru's stomach was already desperately hungry. He casually grabbed a piece of the restaurant's specialty manga-style bone-in meat and was about to start eating. Kuhai-kun, you're really training your body. You can actually eat as much? Haruno Yukinoshita's surprised voice came from beside him. Haruno Yukinoshita unceremoniously sat down next to Haru, and then Yukino Yukinoshita, looking unwilling, had no choice but to sit across from them. Seeing the table full of barbecued meat, Yukino Yukinoshita couldn't help but give Haru a strange look. She really doubted whether Haru could eat so much food. Why are these people here again? Haru was speechless. He casually chewed and swallowed an entire piece of bone-in meat, feeling his stomach feel somewhat better, before speaking leisurely. Haruno-san, this kind of cheap, greasy barbecue restaurant shouldn't be a place for someone of your young lady status to come, right? Then he picked up a greasy chicken leg, stuffed it directly into his mouth, chewed it a few times, and swallowed both meat and bones. Seeing Haru's fierce eating style, Haruno Yukinoshita's beautiful eyes couldn't help but flash with astonishment. She swallowed and felt both terrified and had her appetite aroused. You even eat the bones? Aren't you afraid of choking to death? Yukino Yukinoshita was also frightened and couldn't help but speak in a disdainful tone. However, anyone could hear that she was worried about Haru actually choking to death in front of her. How could Haruno Yukinoshita not hear this? She couldn't help but glance at her sister, a meaningful look flashing in her eyes. No need for Yukinoshita-san's concern. Haru smiled slightly. The boxing method that Hiratsuka-sensei taught me, I've already successfully mastered. My current physique has long since become extraordinary. Mere bones are nothing to my stomach. Before he had mastered it, Haru could already easily digest nutritious things like meat and bones, let alone now that he had succeeded. Hearing this, Yukino Yukinoshita's beautiful eyes flashed with speechlessness. Haru, self-deception can't change the fact that your club room will soon be lost to me. Successfully mastered? That foolish training method couldn't possibly be mastered. Yukino Yukinoshita did believe that Haru's recent training might have made his body somewhat more solid than before, otherwise he couldn't have ordered so much meat. But to train to the point of punching through a school wall with one fist was simply impossible. Believe it or not, Haru had no time to explain to Yukino Yukinoshita. Soon this girl would witness the cruel truth anyway. Nani? What are you talking about regarding some bet, club room and such? Tell big sister about it? However, beside them, Haruno Yukinoshita's eyes lit up as if she had heard some big news, immediately becoming interested. She pretended to look curiously at Haru and Yukino Yukinoshita while actually pricking up her ears. She had already realized that the conversation between Haru and Yukino Yukinoshita just now was the real reason for the rumors between them at school. Yukino Yukinoshita glanced at Haruno with annoyance. Actually, when she said those words earlier, she also intentionally meant for Haruno, this bored person, to overhear. How could she not know that the reason Haruno was pestering Haru was probably because of those school rumors? If she didn't let Haruno figure out the truth, she would probably be annoyed to death. So Yukino deliberately let Haruno know some of the truth. However, revealing this much was already her bottom line. She was too lazy to explain more to Haruno. Come on, Kuhai-kun, tell big sister about it. Seeing that Yukino wouldn't pay attention to her, Yukino had to turn to Haru for help. She intimately hugged Haru's shoulder and pestered him in a coquettish tone. Haru immediately felt the full elasticity and softness on his shoulder, as well as the fragrant breath from the beauty's lips hitting his face, making his expression somewhat unnatural. Chapter 32, Haruno also wants to place a bet. Haru's money-making plan, this little vixen. Haru cursed silently. He was depressed to discover that with his overly vigorous vitality, he actually couldn't withstand Yukino's seductive offensive. This woman was really too skilled. Perfect appearance, mature and alluring body, plus extreme expertise in how to leverage her advantages. Combined together, the lethality was indeed somewhat frightening. It's just about a clubroom matter. Haru felt that if he didn't want to make a fool of himself, he should quickly send Yukino away, so he explained the clubroom bet. There wasn't much harm in explaining it. Of course, he wasn't foolish enough to mention the heterochromia matter. Who knew that as soon as he finished speaking, Yukino suddenly burst into laughter, as if her funny bone had been hit, laughing so hard that she swayed gracefully, her delicate body trembling non-stop. Is it that funny? Haru looked at this woman speechlessly. Rikun, if you like Yukino, just say so directly. There's no need to use this little boy's way of pursuing girls to confess your feelings to Yukino indirectly. Yukino wiped her tears, saying amusedly. Huh? Haru looked at Yukino like she was an idiot. Did this woman even hear what she was saying? Yukino frowned, feeling that her sister was talking nonsense. Punching through the wall of Sobuhai's academic building with one fist. Yukino looked at Haru with mischievous eyes. No matter how you look at it, this isn't something a human could accomplish, right? Making such an obviously impossible bet to win, isn't this deliberately letting Yukino win? Still not being honest. If you like Yukino, just tell big sister directly. Tsundere isn't popular anymore, you know. Haru understood. Obviously, Haruno, like everyone else, thought it was impossible for Haru to accomplish such a thing. She even mistakenly thought Haru was deliberately trying to lose the clubroom to Yukino in a roundabout way. Whatever, be happy if you want. Haru shook his head and continued eating. He didn't plan to waste effort explaining to Haruno. Facts would prove everything. Beside them, Yukino also disdained Haruno's claims. If the clubroom hadn't originally been snatched from her by Haru, if she didn't know that Haru was sometimes a stubborn guy, she might have believed Haruno's claims. The problem was that Haru obviously wasn't the kind of person Haruno described. Noticing the expressions on Haru's and her sister Yukino's faces, Yukino finally realized that things might not be as she thought. She put away the smile on her face. Looking at Haru with shock, Kuhai-kun, you're not really betting with Yukino, are you? You're not deliberately losing to her? Haru ignored her and continued eating his barbecue. Kuhai-kun, do you really think you can punch through a concrete wall with one fist? Yukino's pretty face was full of strangeness as she continued asking. Haru still ignored her. At this point, Yukino's eyes rolled, and a sly smile appeared on her pretty face. Kuhai-kun, big sister is also interested in this bet. Can you let big sister participate too and add another wager? Yukino couldn't sit still. She looked at Haruno with a cold expression. This bet is a private matter between me and Haru. Sister, please don't meddle. Yukino, that's not right. Haruno smiled slightly. I'm betting with Kuhai-kun. That's between the two of us. So you're the one meddling. Yukino took a deep breath and looked at Haru. Don't pay attention to her. Really, not only does Yukino not help her sister, but she's even obstructing her. It's truly heartbreaking. Haruno pretended to sigh sadly, then turned to Haru, speaking in a pitiful tone. Kuhai-kun, you wouldn't be as heartless as Yukino, would you? Just give big sister one chance. Haru originally didn't want to pay attention to Haruno. Hearing this, however, his heart stirred. My appetite has increased greatly recently, and my expenses are getting bigger and bigger. I'm worried about finding a way to make money. This woman Haruno might be able to help me. Haru's eyes flickered. Of course, Haru hadn't thought about gambling money with Haruno or anything like that, but rather wanted to use Haruno's status to do some things that his current identity couldn't accomplish. With the system in hand, he had plenty of ways to make money. The problem was that Haru was a minor, and according to Japanese law, he wasn't qualified to participate in most money-making ventures. If he could get help from Haruno, an adult with a certain social status, then all of this wouldn't be a problem. Thinking of this, Haru immediately decided to agree to Haruno. If Haruno-san insists on participating in this bet, I certainly don't object. Which side does Haruno-san plan to bet on? And what would you want if you win? Haru looked directly at Haruno. Hearing Haru agree, Yukino Shita couldn't help but frown. She had originally wanted to remind Haru not to be foolish. However, thinking of Haru's stubborn brain, she knew that even if she spoke, Haru wouldn't listen. So she just looked at Haruno with displeasure and said nothing more. As a big sister, of course I have to support my little sister. Haruno Yukino Shita smiled slightly. Although she felt that since Haru dared to agree to such a bet, he must have some trump card she didn't know about, Haruno, like Yukino, didn't think Haru had any possibility of victory. If I win. Haruno Yukino Shita's beautiful eyes flashed with amusement. I hope Kuhai-kun will agree to do one thing for big sister in the future. I agree. Haru didn't even ask what Haruno Yukino Shita wanted him to do, because the outcome was already decided. Victory would belong to him no matter what. He then made his own request. If I win, I hope Haruno-san will also agree to do one thing for me. Haruno Yukino Shita was a bit surprised that Haru agreed so decisively. Hearing Haru's words, she immediately pretended to be shy. Something like having big sister date Kuhai-kun won't work, you know. She pretended to add bashfully, after all, there's quite an age gap between Kuhai-kun and big sister. What are you thinking? Haru looked at Haruno speechlessly. He certainly knew that Haruno Yukino Shita couldn't possibly agree to such a thing. I just hope that when I win, Haruno-san will register a stock market account for me. You don't want to trade stocks, do you? Haruno Yukino Shita looked at Haru with a strange expression. Kuhai-kun, the stock market can easily lead to bankruptcy. Big sister doesn't recommend ordinary people without background and professional skills to enter the stock market, especially since you're still an underage student. Yukino Shita also frowned at Haru. Although I know your brain has some problems, it shouldn't be sick to this degree. If you want to make money, you can do part-time work instead of relying on gambling methods like this. Of course, Yukino Shita knew that stock trading wasn't gambling, but for those investors without professional skills, it was pretty much the same as gambling. Even though she disliked Haru, Yukino Shita didn't want to see him go astray. Chapter 33, Planning an Extraordinary System, Navy 6 Styles. Guiding Shizuka Hiratsuka, Haru certainly knew that the two sisters were worried about him going astray. In his previous life, he actually had similar thoughts to the two sisters. The problem was that he now had cheats, so he was naturally different from those retail investors. Anyway, Haruno-san is convinced that I'll lose this bet, so what harm is there in agreeing to me? Haru smiled slightly and changed his approach. When Haruno-san wins, she won't have to worry about me going astray anymore. Naturally, he couldn't tell Haruno about his cheat abilities. That's true. Haruno Yukino Shita's amber-colored beautiful eyes flashed with amusement. That's right, since she couldn't possibly lose, it didn't matter what conditions she agreed to with Haru. In that case, this bet is established. Haruno Yukino Shita giggled and extended her fair, slender jade finger to gently poke Haru's face. Kuhai-kun, you're definitely going to lose this time. No matter how amazing humans are, they can't possibly punch through a concrete wall. It's not like One Piece manga with superhumans who can easily destroy several buildings. One Piece. Hearing this, Haru's eyes couldn't help but move. That's right, this mixed anime world also had One Piece and Naruto manga, and they were also national-level manga in Japan. Even people who didn't really like manga had some knowledge of them. Haruno was just joking, speaking without intent. But Haru was listening with purpose. Having obtained the strength of 1 ox reward, Haru should start planning what he had been considering before. That was to establish a stable improvement system for himself. To make his strength grow in stages, improve comprehensively, and become a hexagonal warrior. Rather than being like now, getting whatever abilities he could in a scattered manner. Otherwise, when he became powerful later, it would lead to unstable foundations and leave obvious weaknesses. Don't forget, Haru's initial goal was to become the only ultimate being in this world without supernatural abilities. How could an ultimate being have weaknesses? Haruno mentioning One Piece immediately made Haru think of the power systems in the One Piece world. Devil fruits naturally weren't an option. But the Navy 6 styles and the 3 types of hockey were all quite comprehensive and powerful abilities that could be improved in stages. Haru felt he could try this. The Navy 6 styles could attack, defend, and even had techniques like moonwalk that allowed people to fly. After mastering the 6 styles, there was even life return, a higher-level body control technique. This was a very comprehensive and systematic ability. Using the 6 styles to begin his extraordinary systematic path could be called perfectly matched. With my current level 2 authority, guiding suggestions for something like the 6 styles should be no problem. Haru's eyes flickered. Hockey might still require insufficient authority, but the 6 styles should be fine. And the 6 styles actually contain some basic hockey techniques within them, serving as foundational applications of hockey. After mastering the 6 styles, when the system authority improved later and he could learn hockey, it would be much simpler. That's right, next I'll learn the 6 styles. Haru's eyes sparkled with brilliance. He suddenly felt that encountering this vixen Haruno today was really good luck. The money-making method was thought of because of her, and the development route was also inspired by this girl. This girl could actually be considered his lucky star. However, to obtain the 6 styles ability, Haru felt he still needed to work on Shizuka Hiratsuka. Suggestions about personal martial prowess from Shizuka Hiratsuka were most easily adopted by the system. A smile appeared on Haru's face. That's what he'd do. Huh, you want me to teach you the 6 styles? Are you messing with me? The next day, in the teacher's office, Shizuka Hiratsuka had a cigarette in her mouth, legs crossed, hands resting on her ample bosom, looking at Haru speechlessly. She thought Haru was looking for her about something, but unexpectedly Haru suddenly made such an absurd request. Shizuka Hiratsuka wondered if she had misheard. The 6 styles. Weren't those techniques from One Piece manga? Although Shizuka Hiratsuka was getting on in years, she had still read national-level manga like One Piece. How could she not know what the 6 styles were? She suspected Haru was deliberately messing with her, thinking she hadn't read manga. Her fists cracked as she clenched them, and her gaze toward Haru became unfriendly. However, what Shizuka Hiratsuka didn't expect was that Haru was now looking at her with a face full of admiration. Shizuka-chan, stop lying to me. I know you're actually a hidden master living in the human world. What are mere 6 styles to you? Cough cough. Shizuka Hiratsuka nearly choked on her cigarette. What was this guy saying? A strange look appeared in her beautiful eyes. Haru, you weren't affected in the brain by that car accident, were you? Should you see a doctor? Really now, teacher still won't admit it even now. Haru pretended to see through Shizuka Hiratsuka, then showed a proud smile. Teacher, it seems I have to present evidence before you'll admit it. Shizuka Hiratsuka was speechless. What was this guy up to? Had he been possessed by aliens? Everything he said was incomprehensible to her. Then she heard Haru say mysteriously in a low voice, Teacher, I've already mastered the boxing method you taught me last time. When did I teach you boxing? Shizuka Hiratsuka's beautiful eyes already showed worry. She really thought something was wrong with Haru's brain. She had long forgotten about the strength of one ox thing. How could she remember such nonsensical jokes? The boxing method that can kill a cow with one punch. Haru smiled slightly and raised his fist. I can already do that now. Hearing this, Shizuka Hiratsuka finally had some recollection. Last time Haru said she was muscular, which made her quite angry. Hey, kid, I was joking last time. She looked at Haru with annoyance. I don't have time to fool around with you. If you have no business, go back to class quickly. She didn't believe Haru's nonsense. Killing a cow with one punch. Such power wasn't something humans could possess. Even if someone could really do such a thing, it would be impossible to master it in 1 week. Shizuka Hiratsuka was increasingly certain that Haru was deliberately messing with her and was starting to lose patience. Shizuka-chan, are you still unwilling to admit it even now? Haru sighed, then said with a serious expression, in that case, I'll prove it to you. This afternoon, please come to the club room, Shizuka-chan. As long as I prove that I've mastered it, please teach me techniques like the 6 styles. Fine, I'll go, okay? Shizuka Hiratsuka said helplessly. Looking at Haru like this, if she didn't agree, he'd probably keep pestering her. She'd find some excuse to dismiss him. Worried that Haru wouldn't give up, she quickly added, if you really have mastered it, it's not impossible for me to teach you that 6 styles thing. Then it's settled. Haru's eyes lit up. His efforts hadn't been in vain. He finally got Shizuka Hiratsuka to agree to teach him the 6 styles. Then he looked at Shizuka Hiratsuka meaningfully. He certainly knew that Shizuka Hiratsuka was just casually dismissing him. However, when he demonstrated the strength of one ox in front of Shizuka Hiratsuka, he believed Shizuka-chan would understand what a wise move meant. Chapter 34, The day of the bet finally arrives. Tense confrontation between red and white sides afternoon, Far East Magic Society. The showdown between Haru and Yukino Shida was finally about to begin. In the classroom, 2 sides were confronting each other. The leader of the red side, a Chuunibyou girl, widened her cute big eyes, deliberately showing a fierce expression on her fair face. Rika Takanashi was very depressed. Depressed that Haru had privately bet the club room with someone without telling her. But after a few calls of master from Haru, she forgave him. She decisively joined forces with Haru against their common enemy and tried to express her hatred toward the opponent. However, when she saw that smiling, pretty, and well-figured big sister on the other side, She couldn't help but feel a tremendous sense of fear rising from her heart. For some unknown reason, although that very beautiful big sister across from them wore an approachable smile on her pretty face, as if she were very easy to get close to, she felt that this big sister was even more terrifying than her own cold-natured sister Rikata Kanashi, who kept people at a distance, giving her an even greater sense of oppression. This made her involuntarily nervous, and her slender legs wrapped in knee-high socks couldn't help but tremble slightly. Thus, her plan to show a fierce, tooth-and-claw image to let the enemy know her determination to defend the clubroom to the death went bankrupt before it even began. Behind Rikata Kanashi, seeing that great beauty, Fumino Furuashi also couldn't help but feel somewhat nervous. Worthy of being Yukino Shita-san's sister, equally beautiful like a fairy tale heroine. However, her figure is much better than Yukino Shita-san's. Is this what being an adult is like? How impressive. Fumino Furuashi looked at that fashionably dressed, elegantly noble mature beauty, especially those surging ample assets, feeling extremely envious. She looked again at the obvious contrast with Yukino Shita, who was about the same as herself, and for some reason, a sense of hope inexplicably arose in her heart. Since she was Yukino Shita's sister, she should have been about the same size as Yukino during high school, right? Yet now she had grown to such proportions, which meant that girls like her and Yukino Shita still had great growth potential. Thinking of this, Fumino Furuashi's mood suddenly became wonderful. As for Megumi Kato, she was quietly being a background character on the side. If she didn't speak up, no one would notice her. Red side, Rikata Kanashi was intimidated before the battle even began. Fumino Furuashi was conquered by the false hope brought by the enemy's ample assets. Almost like defecting to the enemy. And Megumi Kato was just background. The most steadfast one now was actually Rizuogata. Both Rizuogata and Fumino Furuashi had already accepted Haru's invitation to join the Far East Magic Society. Therefore, in this bet concerning the clubroom, she naturally supported Haru and held considerable hostility toward the enemy. She also wasn't like Rikata Kanashi, who would tremble from being intimidated by that mature big sister's oppressive presence, but fearlessly stared directly at her opponent. Meanwhile, the red side's contestant, Haru, was currently being frantically harassed by the white side strategist, Haruno Yukino Shita. Kuhai-kun, being a playboy is not good, you know. Haruno Yukino Shita puffed out her cheeks, her amber-colored beautiful eyes showing a hint of resentment, her fair, slender jade finger continuously poking at Haru's face. This time it was much more forceful than when they were eating dinner yesterday evening. Obviously Haruno Yukino Shita was a bit angry. When was I ever a playboy? Haru was speechless. Being in the same club with so many cute girls, are you the male protagonist of a campus romance manga? Haruno Yukino Shita said through gritted silver teeth. Haruno Yukino Shita's deliberate flattery toward Haru yesterday certainly wasn't because she had taken a fancy to him, but rather for her beloved sister. Haruno had always worried that Yukino's personality would make her unable to get by at school, continuing to be isolated and even invisibly bullied like in middle school. So when she discovered there was someone like Haru who could make her sister face reality, she immediately became interested. After her personal observation last night, she realized that her sister's attitude toward Haru wasn't just acknowledgement. She actually held him in considerable regard. At that time, she had conceived the idea of having Haru and her sister become friends. If they got along well, even having them become lovers or get married wouldn't be unacceptable to Haruno. That's why she went to such great lengths to request participation in this bet. But unexpectedly, when she came to the location excitedly, she saw that there were so many beautiful girls with intimate relationships with Haru. In that case, how could she dare entrust Yukino to Haru? She was even a bit worried about them just being friends. Hey, Haruno-san, I already said that Yukino and I don't have that kind of relationship. Haru retorted with annoyance. Sister, haven't you made enough of a scene? There are other people watching here. Yukino Shita suppressed her anger and spoke coldly. And you actually think I would date this guy? When did your standards become so low? Sorry. Hearing their words, Haruno Yukino Shita immediately withdrew her finger and showed an apologetic smile to Rikata Kanashi and the others. Her heart skipped a beat because of Yukino Shita's words. It's precisely because you say things like that I'm worried. Haruno Yukino Shita's heart was in suspense. As the ultimate sister complex, her understanding of Yukino was even clearer than Yukino understood herself. She wasn't afraid of Yukino expressing friendly emotions toward Haru. She was afraid of this tsundere attitude. It's over. I need to think of a way to stop this. Haruno Yukino Shita lamented in her heart. If she had known this would happen, she would have intervened in this matter earlier. She looked at Haru with displeasure. She hadn't expected this kid who previously appeared to be an honest, good person to secretly be such a playboy. Haruno Yukino Shita, Actually misjudged someone one day. She sighed. But then, her eyes rolled and she suddenly thought, wait, being a playboy might actually be better. If I, Haruno Yukinoshita, make a move, wouldn't I easily make him submit to me? A sinister look flashed in Haruno Yukinoshita's eyes. Then I'll let Yukino see his true face. Yes, that's it. Probably no one present could imagine that this big sister who treated everyone with such kindness had conceived a wicked plan to sow discord and seduce an innocent good boy in just a few moments. Otherwise, even Saint Megami would exclaim in horror and say this woman couldn't be kept around. Even Haru couldn't imagine that Haruno, who had been so affectionate with him yesterday, was actually planning to scheme against him. Even if he knew, he wouldn't be too surprised. After all, this woman's sister-complex soul was the kind that even Yubro could only bow down to worship. Though Yu was hardly a sister complex, just a pervert. Haru's mood was also starting to become somewhat expectant. Completing this bet would not only allow him to harvest 100 instances of Yukino's benefits, seeing through her 100 times, open up money-making opportunities, stock market account, but also get suggestions about the 6 styles from Shizuka Hiratsuka, obtaining strength improvement rewards as well. 3 birds with 1 stone. So instead of waiting for the agreed date to arrive, he had proposed the bet with Yukino a few days early and called Haruno over too. Now he was just waiting for Shizuka Hiratsuka to arrive. Aren't we starting yet? Yukinoshita looked at Haru coldly. She had been waiting for so many days, impatiently wanting to see the moment of Haru's failure. Yet when everyone had arrived, this guy was still delaying for what? Sorry, please wait a moment. Haru frowned, thinking about Shizuka Hiratsuka who still hadn't appeared. He wondered in his heart whether that person might not come. So he casually took out his phone and dialed Shizuka Hiratsuka. Shizuka-chan, I heard from Rika that she knows a curse specifically for people who don't keep their promises, the kind that makes them unable to marry for their entire life. Without waiting for Shizuka Hiratsuka to answer, Haru decisively hung up the phone. Rika Takanashi's eyes widened. When had she ever told Haru she knew such a curse? Haruno Yukinoshita's mouth twitched, and she felt a chill in her heart. To say such harsh words to Shizuka-chan. How wicked could this guy be? Who didn't know that what Shizuka-chan feared most was being unable to get married? Her impression of Haru changed again. Could someone who could speak such precisely cruel words be an honest person? In Haruno Yukinoshita's mind, Haru's honest and good-natured image was almost completely disappearing. She was even more determined to implement that plan. Otherwise, at this rate, she was a bit worried that her sister wouldn't be a match for Haru. Yukinoshita also looked at Haru with a strange expression. She felt that when this guy got sharp-tongued, he seemed no weaker than herself. It's just that she had never seen him use it before. This time, Yukinoshita didn't urge him anymore. She knew that after Haru said such things, unless the world was ending, Shizuka Hiratsuka would definitely charge over and tear Haru apart. Sure enough, before long, a murderous roar came from far too near. Haru, you actually dare curse me to be single for life, I'm going to kill. Shizuka Hiratsuka rushed into the club room in a panic, striding on those long, beautiful legs. Everyone's finally here. A smile appeared on Haru's face. Ignoring Shizuka Hiratsuka who was pouncing toward him with claws bared, he directly faced the wall. Stepped forward. Raised his arm. Then threw a punch. Chapter 35, One punch cracks the wall, the girl's shock. Haru, it really was taught by Shizuka-chan. As soon as Haru made his move, he mobilized all his strength. The power within his body instantly gushed out like a waterfall. The terrifying force that had exploded to its limit all gathered on his fist. Then blasted out with tremendous speed. The moment his fist made contact with the wall between the Far East Magic Society and the Service Club. Boom. Like an explosion. Everyone in the classroom immediately felt as if their eardrums had been shattered, startled into covering their ears, each showing expressions of pain. Shizuka Hiratsuka, who had angrily strode into the classroom, was also startled, suddenly stopping in her tracks and widening her eyes. Then her exquisite pretty face completely froze. The anger on her face instantly disappeared, transforming into an expression of disbelief as she stared fixedly at Haru. The sound of cracking slowly echoed. At this moment, everyone who had recovered from their shock opened their eyes one after another. Then, each pair of beautiful eyes froze in place. Haruno Yukinoshita, who had been prepared to watch a good show, lost her trademark composed young lady smile that could remain calm even if the sky fell. It had completely disappeared. Her amber-colored beautiful eyes were also filled with boundless astonishment and shock. Yukinoshita, Megami Kato, and the others. Their variously charming cute faces were now also frozen motionless, their small mouths agape in shock. Everyone saw that at the position where Haru's fist had been, the white painted wall suddenly cracked like a glass plate struck by a heavy object, with countless fissures appearing instantly. Then the cracks spread at a terrifying speed. In an instant, they covered a large area. With a thunderous crash, everyone watched as the originally smooth, pristine wall collapsed inward, revealing the twisted steel reinforcement bars within the concrete and the service club classroom on the other side. Scattered dust immediately spread throughout both classrooms, making everyone in the rooms cough involuntarily. Only Shizuka Hiratsuka, who was standing farthest away, remained unaffected. Only then did Haru slowly lower his fist. He turned around and looked at Shizuka Hiratsuka. He smiled slightly. "Shizuka-chan, what were you saying just now?" Looking at Haru's harmonious, smiling face, Shizuka Hiratsuka swallowed. Without thinking, she showed an unprecedentedly gentle smile and said, "I didn't say anything." Haru was very satisfied. Then he looked toward the current losers, the Yuki no Shita sisters. "Yuki no Shita-san, Haru no-san." Haru smiled slightly. "It looks like I won." Haru no Yuki no Shita instinctively looked at Haru. Even now, the shock in her heart hadn't subsided. Looking at this boy who was the same age as her sister, she really couldn't imagine that such a young body could contain such terrifying power. Compared to the shock, she actually didn't care as much about losing the bet. However, Haru no Yuki no Shita's talent for staying calm in crises was still there. Soon, she concealed the shock in her heart. She looked at Haru with half-genuine, half-fake admiring eyes. "Kuhai-kun, you really surprised big sister this time. You can actually do such an incredible thing. Kuhai-kun, you're not Superman, are you? Even a world-class boxing champion couldn't have such terrifying power." She pretended to stare at Haru's hand in surprise and even boldly touched it. She wanted to know if this guy's fist was made of steel. Could this guy be a robot sent by Skynet? Compared to her sister who could still maintain composure, Yuki no Shita could no longer stay calm. She was also deeply shocked by Haru's power. But after the shock, she realized what kind of situation she would face. Without a doubt, she had lost this bet. And the consequence of losing the bet was that from now on, she would have to let Haru use those perverted see-through eyes to look at her 100 times. Thinking of such a scenario, Yuki no Shita's heart was in complete panic. But she knew she couldn't panic, otherwise that guy Haru would definitely push his luck. She tried to force herself to maintain a calm expression on her face, but when facing Haru directly, her evasive eyes and slightly trembling delicate body made her disguise completely ineffective. Haru's perception was extremely sharp. He could certainly see that Yuki no Shita was panicking. He chuckled inwardly and didn't plan to expose Yuki no Shita here. He'd get the other two rewards first. "Haru no-san, I told you before that this boxing method was taught to me by Shizuka-sensei." Haru smiled honestly, modestly indicating that this credit belonged to Shizuka-chan. After speaking, he deliberately looked at Shizuka Hiratsuka with a grateful expression, showing no intention of taking credit. Shizuka Hiratsuka's expression was stiff. Seeing Haru say such things with that worshipful expression, she felt extremely embarrassed. She now found the whole situation absurd. This guy had actually mastered a joke she had made casually. Was she crazy or was the world crazy? How could such a thing be possible? Of course, Shizuka Hiratsuka also somewhat suspected that Haru was messing with her. Maybe he was naturally gifted with superhuman strength. But he deliberately said it was her credit. However, thinking of Haru's earlier action of punching through the wall, and whether it was her imagination or not, Haru's friendly smile at that time seemed to carry a hint of threat. Shizuka Hiratsuka suddenly didn't dare to voice her inner thoughts. "Shizuka-chan taught you?" Haru no Yuki no Shita looked at Haru speechlessly, then at Shizuka Hiratsuka. She had been Shizuka Hiratsuka's student back then and had an excellent relationship with her. Even now in university, she maintained contact with Shizuka Hiratsuka. How could she not know Shizuka Hiratsuka's abilities? Shizuka Hiratsuka had practiced some karate and other fighting techniques. But she couldn't possibly do something as abnormal as what Haru just did. "Haru no-san, what's with that look? Are you looking down on Shizuka-sensei?" Haru stared at Haru no indignantly, as if angered by her words. "Even if it's Haru no-san, I'll get angry if you look down on Shizuka-sensei. Please don't get angry, I'm really not as amazing as you say." Shizuka Hiratsuka felt Haru no's strange gaze directed at her, her face burning hot. In fact, Shizuka-sensei is a peerless master who has hidden her true strength. Just one technique she casually taught me made me this powerful in such a short time. Haru said righteously, and this morning, Shizuka-sensei already agreed to teach me the real 6 styles. Her kindness is greater than mountains. I won't allow anyone to insult Shizuka-sensei. 6 styles? Haru no Yuki no Shita widened her beautiful eyes with a surprised expression. Are you freaking kidding me? Aren't the 6 styles a manga setting from One Piece? I just talked to you about seeing One Piece yesterday. Chapter 36, Shizuka-chan is a peerless master. Shizuka-chan has an epiphany. Haruno no Shita looked at Shizuka Hiratsuka strangely. The meaning in her eyes was obvious. Shizuka-chan, did I hear wrong? Or are you really a peerless master? Shizuka Hiratsuka blushed slightly. She returned a look. Don't you know me? What kind of peerless master am I? Don't ask. Who knows what's going on with this kid? I was just talking casually before, but he actually mastered it. Now he actually believes I know the 6 styles. It's absurd. Haruno no Shita rolled her eyes and gave another look. So what are you planning to do? Come clean. Shizuka Hiratsuka broke out in a cold sweat and showed a pleading look. Did you see that wall? Do you think if I come clean, that kid might use his wall-smashing fist on me? Try it? I think Kuhai-kun respects you quite a bit. Haruno no Shita gave an encouraging look. Try your ass. If I really try, it'll be try and die. Shizuka Hiratsuka was exasperated and too lazy to deal with Haruno no Shita, who was just watching the excitement. She was now a bit panicked, not knowing how to respond to Haru. If she really had to teach the 6 styles, she didn't have that ability. And the other people in the classroom, hearing Haru's words, were all filled with doubt and suspicion. Could Shizuka-chan really be some kind of peerless master? This isn't scientific. Rizu, usually rational, was now mentally confused. With her perfect biology grades, she really couldn't use her knowledge to explain Haru's abnormal strength. This simply wasn't power that humans could use. Darwin's coffin lid couldn't even hold him down anymore. Could it be that martial arts magic and such really exist in the world? Is Shizuka-sensei really a peerless master? Rizu couldn't help but look at Shizuka Hiratsuka. Perhaps this was the only explanation. After all, Haru was such a gentle and kind good person. How could he possibly deceive her? Without a doubt, Rizu trust in Haru was extremely high. She didn't doubt Haru's words, but rationally, she somewhat doubted the existence of supernatural martial arts like those in movies and novels. Fumino Furuashi was in a similar situation to Rizu. She also looked at Shizuka Hiratsuka with the expression of viewing a worldly expert. She hadn't expected that there was actually a sweeping monk-like existence from movies in her school. Indeed, movie plots were all derived from reality. Perhaps there really were such incredible magical people in the world. She just hadn't discovered them yet. The naturally romantic Fumino Furuashi was even more accepting of Haru's words than Rikata Kanashi. The anger on her face instantly disappeared, replaced by an expression of disbelief as she stared intently in Haru's direction. The sound of cracking gradually echoed through the air. At this moment, everyone who had recovered from their shock opened their eyes one by one. What followed was a collective freeze of beautiful gazes. Haruno no Shita, who had been preparing to watch the show with her trademark elegant smile that remained composed even if the sky were to fall, saw that expression disappear completely. Her amber-colored eyes were filled with boundless shock and amazement. Yukino Shita, Megumi Kato, and the others, each with their own charming and cute faces, were now frozen in place, their mouths agape in shock. Everyone could see what had happened at the spot where Haru's fist had struck. The white-painted wall, with a cracking sound like glass suddenly struck by a heavy object, instantly developed countless spider-web cracks. Then, the cracks spread at an alarming speed. In an instant, they covered a large area. With a thunderous roar, everyone watched as the originally smooth and pristine flat wall collapsed completely, revealing the twisted steel rebar within the concrete and the service club classroom on the other side. Scattered dust immediately spread throughout both classrooms, causing everyone inside to cough uncontrollably. Only Shizuka Hiratsuka, who was standing farthest away, remained unaffected. At this moment, Haru slowly lowered his fist and turned around to look at Shizuka Hiratsuka. He smiled slightly. Shizuka, what were you saying just now? Looking at Haru's harmonious and pleasant smile, Shizuka Hiratsuka swallowed hard. Without thinking, she immediately showed a gentle smile unlike any she had ever displayed before. I didn't say anything. Haru was very satisfied. Then he looked toward the current losers, the Yuki no Shita sisters. Yuki no Shita-san, Haruno-san. Haru smiled slightly. It looks like I won. Haruno Yuki no Shita instinctively looked toward Haru. Even now, the shock in her heart had not subsided. Looking at this boy who was the same age as her sister, she found it hard to imagine that such a young body could contain such terrifying power. Rather than being shocked, losing the bet didn't matter as much to her. However, Haruno Yuki no Shita's natural talent for staying composed was still there. Soon, she managed to hide the shock in her heart. She looked at Haru with half-genuine, half-fake admiration. Kohai-kun, you really surprised your senpai this time. To actually be able to do something so incredible. Kohai-kun couldn't be Superman, could you? Even a world-class boxer couldn't possibly have such terrifying power. She deliberately acted shocked while staring at Haru's hands, even boldly reaching out to touch them. She wanted to know if this guy's fists were made of steel. Could this guy actually be a robot sent by Skynet? Compared to her sister who could still maintain her composure, Yukino Shita could no longer stay calm. She was also deeply shocked by Haru's power. But after the shock, she realized what kind of situation she would face. Without a doubt, she had lost this bet. And the consequence of losing the bet was that from now on, she would have to let Haru use those perverted X-ray eyes on her 100 times. Just thinking about that scenario made Yukino Shita panic internally. But she knew she couldn't panic, otherwise that guy Haru would definitely push his luck. She forced herself to maintain a calm expression on her face, but her evasive gaze and slightly trembling delicate body made her disguise completely ineffective. Haru's keen observation skills naturally caught that Yukino Shita was panicking. He secretly smiled to himself but didn't plan to expose Yukino Shita here. He'd better get the other two rewards first. Haruno-san, I told you from the beginning that this fighting technique was taught to me by Shizuka-sensei. Haru smiled honestly, humbly stating that this achievement belonged to his beloved Shizuka. After speaking, he even deliberately looked at Shizuka Hiratsuka with a grateful and adoring expression, showing no intention of taking credit. Shizuka Hiratsuka's expression froze. Seeing Haru say such things with that worshipful look, she felt incredibly awkward inside. She now found the whole situation absurd. A joke she had made casually, and this guy had actually mastered it. Was she the one who was crazy, or was the world crazy? How could such a thing be possible? Of course, Shizuka Hiratsuka also suspected that Haru was playing with her. Maybe he was naturally gifted with superhuman strength. But he was deliberately saying it was her achievement. However, thinking about Haru's earlier punch that shattered the wall, and what might have been just her imagination, the friendly smile Haru had shown at that time seemed to carry a hint of threat. Shizuka Hiratsuka suddenly didn't dare voice her inner thoughts. Shizuka taught you this? Haruno Yukino Shita looked at Haru speechlessly, then at Shizuka Hiratsuka. She had been Shizuka Hiratsuka's student back in the day and had maintained an excellent relationship with her, continuing their friendship even after starting university. How could she not know Shizuka Hiratsuka's capabilities? Shizuka Hiratsuka had practiced some karate and similar fighting techniques. But it was impossible for her to do something as abnormal as what Haru had just done. Haruno-san, what's with that look? Are you looking down on Shizuka-sensei? Haru stared at Haruno indignantly, as if he had been angered by her words. Even if you're Haruno-san, I'll get angry if you look down on Shizuka-sensei. Please don't get angry, I'm really not as amazing as you're making me out to be. Shizuka Hiratsuka felt her face burning as she sensed Haruno's strange glances directed at her. In fact, Shizuka-sensei is a legendary master who has hidden her true strength. Any technique she casually teaches me allows me to become this powerful in such a short time. Haru declared righteously, and this morning, Shizuka-sensei has already agreed to teach me the real 6 powers. Her kindness is as heavy as a mountain, and I won't allow anyone to insult Shizuka-sensei. 6 powers. Haruno Yukino Shita widened her beautiful eyes with a look of amazement. Are you kidding me? 6 powers is a manga setting from One Piece. I told you yesterday that I've read One Piece too. Chapter 36, is Hiratsuka-sensei a legendary master? Shizuka's realization. Haruno Yukino Shita looked at Shizuka Hiratsuka with a strange expression. Her eyes clearly conveyed, Shizuka, did I hear wrong? Or are you really a legendary master? Shizuka Hiratsuka blushed slightly. She responded with a look that said, don't you know me? What kind of legendary master am I? Don't ask, who knows what's wrong with this kid? I was just talking casually before, but he actually mastered it. Now he actually believes I know the 6 powers. This is just ridiculous. Haruno Yukino Shita rolled her eyes and gave another look. So what are you going to do? Come clean. Shizuka Hiratsuka broke out in a cold sweat and showed a pleading expression. Did you see that wall? Do you think if I confess, that kid might use his wall-shattering fist on me? Try it? I think Kohai-kun respects you quite a bit. Haruno Yukino Shita gave an encouraging look. Try my ass. If I actually try that, it'll be try it and then rest in peace. Shizuka Hiratsuka was covered in black lines, too lazy to deal with this troublemaker Haruno Yukino Shita who loved to watch the world burn. She was now a bit panicked, not knowing how to respond to Haru. She really couldn't teach the 6 powers, she didn't have that ability. Meanwhile, the other people in the classroom were listening to Haru's words with minds full of suspicion and confusion. Could Shizuka really be some kind of legendary master? This isn't scientific. Rizu Ogata, who was always rational, now had her mind in chaos. With her perfect biology grades, she couldn't use her knowledge to explain Haru's abnormal power. This wasn't the kind of strength humans could possess. Darwin's coffin couldn't hold him down anymore. Could it be that martial arts magic really exists in the world? Is Shizuka-sensei really a legendary master? Rizu Ogata couldn't help but look toward Shizuka Hiratsuka. Perhaps this was the only explanation. After all, Haru-san was such a gentle and kind good person, how could he possibly lie? Without a doubt, Rizu Ogata's trust in Haru was extremely high. She didn't doubt Haru's words at all, just intellectually questioning whether supernatural martial arts like those in movies and novels really existed. Fumino Furuashi was in a similar situation to Rizu Ogata. She also looked at Shizuka Hiratsuka with the expression of someone looking at a worldly sage. She never expected that there would be someone like the sweeping monk from movies in her own school. Sure enough, movie plots were all based on reality. Perhaps there really were such incredible and mysterious people in the world, just that she hadn't discovered them yet. The naturally romantic Fumino Furuashi was even more accepting of Haru's explanation than Rika Takanashi. Rika Takanashi was even more excited, staring at Shizuka Hiratsuka with sparkling eyes. If there weren't so many people present, she would have already tried to become Shizuka Hiratsuka's disciple. After all, when Shizuka Hiratsuka had said those words back then, she had been personally present. And now Haru had actually mastered it. Witnessing Haru gain supernatural power from nothing with her own eyes, she was so envious her eyes turned red. However, only these three people blindly trusted Haru's words. Megumi Kato and Yukino Shita didn't unconditionally believe Haru's words like they did. Especially Yukino Shita, who remembered how Haru had used his heterochromatic eyes on her before and knew that Haru wasn't as honest as he seemed. She had an intuition that Haru was playing with Shizuka Hiratsuka when he said these things. How exactly did this guy manage to do it? Rather than caring about Shizuka Hiratsuka's situation, Yukino Shita was more interested in Haru's secret, quietly observing him. Her heart itched with unwillingness. This girl with an exceptionally strong competitive spirit had been dealt a blow by Haru twice, and had to admit that Haru was actually a very excellent person. Megumi Kato, who had barely shown any presence from beginning to end, watched Haru seriously reveal Shizuka Hiratsuka's identity with a hint of amusement in her eyes. Of course, she was also shocked, but not much. She just thought Haru was amazing. And she also intuitively felt that Haru was playing with Shizuka Hiratsuka. Although she didn't understand what Haru's purpose was in doing this, Megumi Kato believed that Haru wasn't someone who would blindly tease teachers. He must have his own ideas. Thinking about this Haru, whom she had only recently met but who had repeatedly exceeded her expectations, Megumi Kato's eyes sparkled with amusement as she became increasingly interested in the mysteries surrounding him. She had a premonition that perhaps many incredible things would happen around Haru in the future. By Haru's side, she would definitely not live the same bland daily life as before. Haru-kun really is an enigmatic person. Megumi Kato silently sighed to herself, looking at Haru's figure with some anticipation. Naturally, Haru was completely unaware of the thoughts of those around him. After praising Shizuka Hiratsuka a few times, he felt it was time to reveal his true intentions. Shizuka. Haru approached Shizuka Hiratsuka with an expectant expression. I've successfully accomplished it. Now you should fulfill your promise and teach me the 6 powers. Please don't worry, teacher. Once a teacher, always a teacher. I definitely won't disgrace your reputation. In the future, when you're old, I'll take care of you in your retirement. Hearing these words, Shizuka Hiratsuka nearly spat blood. Does this old lady need you to take care of me? Do you think I'll never get married and will end up like those lonely elderly people? Of course, she didn't dare say such things. After all, the shocking effect Haru had just created was still replaying in her mind. Moreover, seeing Haru's small eyes filled with worship and trust, Shizuka Hiratsuka felt even more guilty. She was even less daring to tell the truth. Fortunately, just now, after racking her brains, she had already figured out how to respond to Haru. After all, she had previous experience. Just like last time, it should be fine. Ahem. Shizuka Hiratsuka coughed dryly to hide her panic, forcing herself to remain calm as she said, Haru, I keep my word. Since you want to learn, teaching you the 6 powers isn't a big deal. Yukino Shita and Megumi Kato couldn't help but look over. Their faces were suspicious. Does Shizuka really know the 6 powers? Haru no Yukino Shita was secretly laughing. She already knew that Shizuka Hiratsuka was probably preparing to bluff Haru in her desperation. She wondered how this guy planned to deceive Haru, and whether she could get away with it. The 3 people who had already started believing in Shizuka Hiratsuka, Rika Takanashi and the others, perked up their ears, wanting to watch and remember, to secretly learn. Rizu Ogata wanted to study what Shizuka Hiratsuka was saying, whether it was scientific, and what the principle behind it was. Meanwhile, Rika and Fumino Furuashi were somewhat yearning for extraordinary existence. They wanted to try whether they could become such people. The only one controlling the entire situation, Haru, now showed a slight smile on his face. It wasn't in vain that he had put in so much effort. Shizuka was finally getting the hint. He immediately straightened his posture, adopting the attitude of an obedient good student, saying with a serious expression, "Please teach me, teacher. I absolutely won't miss a single word." Seeing Haru's sincere attitude, Shizuka Hiratsuka felt even more guilty. She probed tentatively, I can teach you, but whether you can comprehend it depends on your personal enlightenment." After saying this, Shizuka Hiratsuka felt somewhat relieved. Fortunately, she had watched quite a few martial arts movies from the neighboring country. Enlightenment. What a supreme treasure for masters teaching disciples. Anyway, I taught you. But how well I teach depends on your enlightenment. If you can't comprehend it, that's because your enlightenment isn't enough, not because I, your teacher, didn't teach well. What? You actually dare to doubt your master's teaching ability? You don't even understand respecting teachers and valuing the way, and you still have the face to become a disciple and learn things? Thinking of this, Shizuka Hiratsuka's eyes lit up, suddenly discovering that she wasn't so panicked anymore. She suddenly knew how to teach Haru the 6 powers. Chapter 37, Haruno betrays Shizuka, Yukino Shiten honors her bet. Go watch the One Piece anime seriously. Shizuka Hiratsuka raised her fist, looking at Haru with full enthusiasm and a determined tone. As long as you have enough enlightenment, you'll be able to comprehend the real 6 powers from One Piece. After saying this, Shizuka Hiratsuka couldn't help but show a proud smile on her face, giving herself a thumbs up for her cleverness. As expected of her, to come up with such a universal answer. She was really too smart. Seeing Shizuka Hiratsuka's proud expression, Haruno Yukino Shito was speechless. She immediately understood that Shizuka Hiratsuka was bluffing again. How could anyone comprehend the 6 powers with such a ridiculous method? Originally, she was quite looking forward to seeing how Haru would deal with Shizuka Hiratsuka when she couldn't provide an answer. She didn't expect Shizuka Hiratsuka to get out of trouble so quickly. Haruno was also someone who enjoyed drama, and she didn't want to see the fun end so quickly. At this moment, Haruno Yukino Shita's bright eyes flashed with a hint of cunning, and she smiled slightly. "That's not right, Shizuka. One Piece is Oda-sensei's work. Oda-sensei is just a manga artist. The 6 powers he drew are just fictional things. How could anyone learn the 6 powers from them?" Shizuka Hiratsuka was immediately dumbfounded. She looked at Haruno Yukino Shita with grief and indignation. She never expected that this good student of hers who had already graduated would actually backstab her. How detestable. Fortunately, she was clever and had thought about patching things up. Shizuka Hiratsuka quickly looked at Haru, laughing dryly as she explained, "Haruno, you don't know this, but actually Oda-sensei's inspiration for the 6 powers came from me. Back then, I was the one who gave him the inspiration." Listening to Shizuka Hiratsuka boast without batting an eye, even Fumino Furuashi and the others who had previously believed in Shizuka Hiratsuka began to have doubts. How could a mere high school teacher possibly know a great manga artist like Oda-sensei? Haruno Yukino Shita smiled slightly. "Shizuka, oh Shizuka, haven't you heard that one lie requires more lies to maintain it?" She was about to speak again, continuing to expose Shizuka. "Haruno-san, please don't question Shizuka-sensei anymore. I believe Shizuka-sensei wouldn't deceive me." However, Haru suddenly spoke up with a serious expression, interrupting Haruno's continued backstabbing. The reason he stopped Haruno from being a troublemaker was naturally because the system had already accepted Shizuka's suggestion. Watch One Piece anime episodes related to the 6 powers, watch 3 episodes daily for 1 week continuously. Reward, 6 powers training method, the 6 powers training method, which meant the method to cultivate the 6 powers. Not directly obtaining the 6 powers. This made Haru slightly disappointed. He still had to work hard to train himself. This reward was a bit too weak. But considering the difficulty of the task, it obviously wasn't enough for Haru to directly master the 6 powers. Spending some time on it isn't a big problem. Haru was still very satisfied with this result. After all, once he got the 6 powers training method, as long as he spent some time training, he could master the 6 powers. He would still achieve his original goal. Then, he showed an expression of admiration and worship toward Shizuka Hiratsuka. "Shizuka-sensei, I will definitely master the 6 powers as soon as possible. When that time comes, please continue to guide me." Continue to guide? Shizuka Hiratsuka had just breathed a sigh of relief, but hearing these words, her heart immediately became anxious again. She wanted to cry but had no tears. "Will you ever stop, you brat?" But thinking that this kid was talking about after learning the 6 powers, her anxious heart finally settled down. Anyway, this kid couldn't possibly learn the 6 powers. Punching through a wall could still be explained by Haru's exceptional talent and natural superhuman strength. The earth was so big that the appearance of such a freakish constitution wasn't incomprehensible. But the 6 powers were fictional things from manga. If Haru could learn the 6 powers, she would eat the wall fragments that Haru had just shattered on the spot. Thinking of this, Shizuka Hiratsuka completely relaxed, patting Haru's shoulder and acting generous. Don't worry, as long as you can learn the 6 powers, I definitely won't be stingy with you. Whatever you want to learn, I can teach you. Having decided that Haru couldn't do it, Shizuka Hiratsuka naturally didn't mind making empty promises to Haru. This way, she could also appear generous as a beautiful teacher and increase her authority as an educator. Kohai-kun actually trusts Shizuka so much? Haru no Yuki no Shita was a bit confused. What the hell? Shizuka Hiratsuka's ridiculous words, and Haru actually believed them. Any normal person wouldn't believe such nonsense. She suddenly suspected, like Yuki no Shita had before, whether Haru had brain problems due to some accident. But then, she felt something was off. If Haru had brain problems, why was the current situation one where Haru had won the bet, and both excellent sisters of the Yuki no Shita family had lost to Haru? And even Shizuka, such a clever and cunning person, was suffering in silence in front of Haru. Though puzzled, Haru no Yuki no Shita only vaguely felt something was wrong and didn't think too much about it for now. Her attention was mainly focused on her sister. I should think about how to keep Yukino away from Kohai-kun. I need to let Yukino know quickly that this Kohai-kun guy isn't an honest person. Haru no Yuki no Shita quickly shifted her thoughts to scheming against Haru. Haru had successfully obtained the task with the 6 powers training method as a reward. Next, naturally, he needed to collect the other 2 rewards. Of course, he wouldn't mention the stock account matter at school, to avoid letting Shizuka Hiratsuka know. If Shizuka Hiratsuka knew about this, she would definitely stop Haruno and ruin his plans. Haru naturally didn't want any complications. Therefore, at school, there was only 1 reward left that he could obtain. An hour later, in the now cleaned combined club classroom, only Haru and Yukino Shita remained. Yukino Shita-san, it's time to fulfill your promise. Haru looked at Yukino Shita in front of him, who was trying to hide her panic with the same cold expression as before. However, her pursed tempting red lips, her tense slender body, and the slight trembling of her long legs in black knee-high socks all betrayed her true feelings at this moment. Haru's lips curved slightly upward, his eyes carrying a hint of amusement. He had thought Yukino Shita would flee, but unexpectedly, she hadn't. Yukino Shita raised her slightly flushed face, her eyes showing a trace of shyness and annoyance, gritting her silver teeth as she said, "The people I hate most are dishonest people. Since I lost this bet, I absolutely won't break my promise." Speaking thus, she took a deep breath, her cheeks already crimson, her fair palm gripping the armrest of the chair beside her, her voice trembling as she said, "Come on, use those filthy eyes of yours, look all you want." Chapter 38, Fulfilling the Bet. The money-making plan begins. Looking at this girl who was clearly extremely nervous but still enduring her shame and standing before him, Haru couldn't help but feel a flash of appreciation in his eyes. Honesty. Indeed, this was Yukino Shita's most excellent quality. She had always treated people honestly, priding herself on never lying, always speaking her mind rather than hiding her thoughts. Precisely because of this, the words she spoke were considered too harsh by those around her, leading to her being ostracized by people around her. Haru couldn't help but think of those novel plot routines he had read in his previous life. In situations like this where the male protagonist could easily take advantage of the female protagonist, the male protagonist would always resist temptation and give up the benefits at hand. Subsequently, the female protagonist would appreciate the male protagonist for his restraint, considering him a good man, and thus develop admiration and affection for him. After a series of events, they would inevitably develop into lovers. Haru knew that if he acted that way, there was a high probability that Yukino Shita would, like those female protagonists in novels, appreciate him and even develop some affection. However, Haru would never do such a thing. When he read those novels in his previous life, what he hated most were these kinds of plots. "I've already taken off my pants, and you're telling me to sit still and not be tempted? Screw those authors." Therefore, Haru activated his heterochromatic eyes without hesitation. He felt no psychological burden or regret. To win this bet, he had worked hard practicing his punches for 10 days. How could he possibly give up? He hadn't secretly used his heterochromatic eyes to peep at beautiful girls, which was already having enough of a bottom line. If he gave up on this bet too, he would doubt whether he was even a man. Then, his breathing stopped. The moment Haru activated his heterochromatic eyes, Yukino Shita's beautiful eyes flashed with a trace of shyness, her breathing suddenly became rapid, and her mind went blank. A pink blush quickly spread from her crystal-clear ears to her fair, slender neck across her delicate and pretty face. The pitiful softness on her upper body also rose and fell unevenly due to nervousness. Under her plaid skirt, her legs suddenly pressed together. Inside her white indoor shoes, her jade toes wrapped in black knee-high socks curled inward tightly. At this moment, Yukino Shida was undoubtedly nervous to the extreme. Although she had been peeped at by Haru twice before, those 2 times were when Haru had activated his heterochromatic eyes on his own. But this time, it was with her permission that Haru activated them. So, she felt exceptionally nervous and ashamed inside. She even had an immoral feeling that she had completely disgraced the Yukino Shida family and become a shameless woman. Yukino Shida, who had always been a good girl, was so ashamed she almost cried. She just wanted this moment to pass quickly. Yukino Shida-san, you can open your eyes now. At this moment, Haru's voice filled with amusement rang out. Yukino Shida immediately breathed a sigh of relief as if a burden had been lifted. Then, she looked at the smiling Haru with the disgusted gaze one would give to scum, suppressing the shame and anger in her heart as she gritted her teeth. Now that you're done looking, please leave the service club. Haru wasn't annoyed. After all, he was the one who had taken advantage. Thinking of the scene just now, Haru's heartbeat couldn't help but quicken. This time was different from the previous 2 surprise attacks with his eyes. Instead, Yukino Shida had mentally prepared herself and let him look. That shy appearance was simply tempting to the extreme. Haru almost couldn't control himself. So, he quickly left the service club. After more than half an hour had passed, Haru finally calmed down somewhat, though images of what he had seen in the service club still flashed through his mind from time to time. No good, I need to find something to do quickly, or I really can't stand it. Haru shook his head vigorously, hurriedly trying to divert his attention. He immediately thought of things he could currently do. First, watch One Piece to obtain the 6 powers training method. He didn't have the conditions for that at school now. Second, find Pashita to complete the extraordinary sense of smell suggestion. But thinking that this suggestion required hugging Pashita for 10 minutes, Haru felt he should calm down first. He had finally managed to suppress his urges. Doing this task now would just be asking for trouble. So, there seemed to be only one thing he could do now. Make money. Haru's eyes lit up. He would soon get his hands on the stock account. The problem was, Haru hadn't yet acquired skills related to stock trading. Who should I get suggestions from for this skill? Haru began to think. If he wanted to make money through stock trading, his best bet was to get suggestions from people who knew how to make money. The problem was, they were all students, and how many of them actually knew how to make money? Just when he was troubled, he suddenly had an idea. No, I don't need to find someone else. I can just ask Haruno. Haru's eyes brightened as he suddenly thought of Haruno. As the heir to a major family like the Yukino Shidas, Haruno couldn't possibly have not received training in the financial field. Therefore, the possibility of getting suggestions from her was extremely high. Perfect, I'll get the account from her and ask for some advice in this area while I'm at it. Haru thought this idea could work. He immediately took out his phone and dialed Haruno's number. However, what he didn't expect was that the ringtone came from the head. Kohai-kun, we just parted such a short time ago, and you're already so eager to hear your senpai's voice? Haruno Yukino Shida walked over gracefully in high heels, carrying a white designer bag in one hand and waving her phone at Haru with the other, her smile radiant. Despite her elegant demeanor and sweet smile, she gave Haru a charming feeling. Haru said in surprise, Haruno-san, you haven't gone home yet? Seeing Haruno immediately, Haru felt no joy at all, but rather some alarm. After all, not long ago, he had just done that sort of thing with Yukino Shida in the service club. If this person had seen it, that would be terrible. But soon Haru realized that Haruno couldn't possibly have discovered what happened in the service club. Otherwise, her attitude wouldn't be like this now. Since I rarely come back to the service club, of course I should visit my former teachers. Haruno Yukino Shida said with an elegant smile, besides, the bet that your senpai promised you hasn't been fulfilled yet, so how could I just leave like that? Speaking thus, her nail-polished fingers held a slip of paper and handed it to Haru. Here, this is the account that your senpai registered for you. Kohai-kun, please don't spend too much money on it. Your senpai will be monitoring your account situation at all times. Stock market accounts all required real name verification. The account Haruno helped Haru register was naturally bound to her own name. So she could also log into this account and see the situation with it. Theoretically, even if Haru made money with this account, legally all that money would belong to Haruno. Both Haru and Haruno understood this clearly. However, Haruno had no intention of stealing Haru's money. She didn't care about a high school student's pocket money. She just didn't want Haru to go astray, so she was prepared to supervise him. Separating her sister from Haru was one thing, preventing Haru from going down the wrong path was another matter. Haruno distinguished between these two things quite clearly. As for Haru, he wasn't worried about Haruno stealing his money. After all, he was a transcendent being, so why would he worry about an ordinary human stealing his money? If Haruno really dared to steal his money, Haru would be even happier. At that time, Haruno could prepare to pay with her body. Haruno-san really keeps her promises. Haru smiled and took the slip of paper, not bothering to look at the account. His heart stirred, and since the person was right here, there was no time like the present to take the opportunity to ask for advice about the stock market. Chapter 39, Stock Market Genius, Yui Hirasawa and Poshita. However, before Haru could ask Haruno anything, Haruno smiled and spoke first. Kohai-kun, you're so confident about entering the stock market, you must understand it very well. No, I actually know nothing about the stock market. After being stunned for a moment, Haru directly told the truth. Admitting to being a rookie wasn't a big deal. This was a perfect excuse to ask Haruno for advice about stock trading. But Haruno's pretty face stiffened. Seeing Haru's single-minded desire to register a stock market account, she had thought this guy had studied the stock market for a long time before deciding to make money through stocks. She never expected this guy to say he knew nothing about the stock market. Wait. Haruno's face was somewhat rigid. Kohai-kun, you don't understand the stock market, but you still plan to make money by trading stocks. There has to be a limit to being overly ambitious, big brother. Haruno suddenly regretted helping Haru register the stock market account. What if Haru lost money? No, with Haru's approach to stock trading, he would definitely lose everything. Then wouldn't she become an accomplice? She began to consider whether she should take the account back. Haruno couldn't just watch Haru jump into the deep pit that was the stock market. I can learn, Haruno-san. Haru's eyes flickered, then he said with feigned confidence, my learning ability is very strong. Give me a few days, and becoming a stock god will be easy. Stock god? Do you think you're Warren Buffett? Haruno looked at Haru with annoyance. Kohai-kun, people need to have self-awareness. A rookie who doesn't even understand the stock market, wanting to become a stock god before even entering the field, should at least have a deep understanding of the stock market before saying such boastful words. A flash of brilliance passed through Haru's eyes. This was exactly what he wanted to hear. He immediately said with feigned seriousness, Haruno-san, what level of understanding of the stock market do you think I need to reach to be considered deeply knowledgeable, to be qualified to challenge becoming a stock god? Kohai-kun, did you even understand what I meant? Haruno Yukino-shida was speechless for the first time. Her meaning had been so obvious, yet this guy actually interpreted her words as teaching him to become a stock god. What kind of logic was that? She suddenly understood Shizuka's feelings a bit. Please don't worry, Haruno-san. I still have self-awareness about myself. I know very clearly what I can and can't do. Haru realized that Haruno wasn't as easy to fool as Shizuka Hiratsuka, so he immediately had an idea and decided to change his approach. He smiled, Haruno-san, feel free to give me some suggestions. Perhaps someday when I become a stock god, I'll repay Haruno-san. You're still talking about being a stock god. Haruno rolled her eyes. Why was this kid so stubborn? Feeling the mysterious confidence emanating from this guy, Haruno was also tired. But seeing Haru's determined expression, she also knew that she probably couldn't change Haru's decision, so she could only say, fine, if you really want to enter the stock market, at least first buy some books about the stock market. Read at least 10 or 20 books first, and memorize all those basic concepts by heart before talking about anything else. Forget about becoming a stock god, at least you won't lose so miserably. Ding. Suggestion received, read 20 professional books involving stock market knowledge and memorize them completely. Reward, stock market genius. Haru was immediately delighted, saying happily to Haruno, thank you, Haruno-san. When I become a stock god, I'll definitely treat you to a high-end restaurant. With this reward in hand, he wouldn't have to worry about money in the future. Moreover, the suggestion Haruno gave was almost effortless for Haru, who had the talent of perfect memory. It was ridiculously easy to complete. I really don't know where you get your confidence. Hearing Haru still thinking about becoming a stock god, Haruno was extremely speechless. She secretly resolved that when Haru actually started trading stocks, she would keep a close eye on the account situation. To prevent Haru from really losing all his money in the stock market. After all, this kid had no other income. All the money he had now came from his parents' inheritance. Once the inheritance was used up, even going to school would become difficult. So Buhai's tuition wasn't low. After saying goodbye to Haruno, Haru immediately ordered 20 professional books online with satisfaction. Through the conversation with Haruno, his boiling emotions caused by Yukino had gradually cooled down. It was time to find Poshita and complete today's task. He had already asked about Poshita's class when they parted on the train, and soon he arrived at Poshita's classroom. As soon as he walked through the door, his expression became strange. Goto-san? Are you okay, Goto-san? Why did you hide in a box? He saw a cute girl with short brown hair carrying a guitar, looking panicked as she called out to a box on the ground. The brown-haired girl had 2 yellow hair clips on the right side of her bangs and a cute face. She had a slender, petite figure with her legs wrapped in smooth black pantyhose. She gave off the air of a naturally airheaded, confused little person. It's actually Yui Hirasawa. These two ended up meeting each other. Haru's mouth twitched. Yes, that brown-haired girl was none other than the main heroine of K-On!, guitarist Yui Hirasawa. And Poshita, as the main heroine of Bocce the Rock, was also a guitarist. The main heroines of 2 rock anime had actually met because of the merged world. Haru found it quite miraculous. But thinking about it, with Hattori Goto's ultimate social anxiety, the reason these two met was obviously that Yui Hirasawa had approached Poshita. At this moment, Haru noticed a guitar case placed beside Poshita's desk. Could it be because of the guitar? Haru vaguely grasped the truth. Hey! Goto-san! At this moment, Yui Hirasawa's small face was extremely panicked. She cupped her hands around her mouth like a megaphone, calling softly to the person in the box. How did this happen? Yui Hirasawa was completely confused. She had seen a girl at school suddenly carrying a guitar, and as a guitar beginner, she immediately rushed excitedly to the other's classroom, wanting to get acquainted. Unexpectedly, when that girl saw her approaching, she immediately got scared and hid in a box. She didn't even dare to speak. What was going on? Meanwhile, inside the box, Hattori Goto's small face was streaming with tears, regretting her stupidity. How could I be so stupid? I brought my guitar to school to make friends. But when someone approached me, I got so nervous I couldn't speak. What should I do now? When other classmates see me like this, they'll definitely think I'm a weirdo. Hattori Goto was so frustrated she wanted to die. She didn't know how to handle the current situation. And Yui Hirasawa was now equally panicked and at a loss. She didn't know what she had done wrong. Just when both adorably clumsy guitarists didn't know what to do. At this moment, a familiar voice suddenly rang out to Hattori Goto, "This classmate, you're scaring my friend." Chapter 40, Panicked Yui Hirasawa, Villainous Haru it's him. Hattori Goto, curled up in the cardboard box, trembled. Immediately, a pink blush quickly spread from her cheeks, covering her entire face. What happened on the train yesterday had made her so shy that she couldn't sleep all night. Because of this, she had inexplicably developed a psychological shadow toward someone as socially forward as Haru. So when Yui Hirasawa, another socially forward person, came looking for her, she immediately got scared and hid in the box. If yesterday's incident hadn't happened, Hattori Goto might have been too nervous to speak, but she wouldn't have directly hidden in a box. Now that Haru had actually come looking for her, Hattori Goto became even more nervous, determined never to leave the box. Meanwhile, Yui Hirasawa, hearing the voice beside her, couldn't help but freeze. Then she looked up and immediately saw a handsome face. This classmate is so handsome. Seeing this face, Yui Hirasawa was a bit starstruck, but then, remembering his words, she panicked. Oh no, Goto-san's friend came over. He won't think I'm bullying Goto-san, will he? Seeing Hattori Goto like this, anyone would suspect they were bullying her. Frightened, Yui Hirasawa hurriedly bowed and blurted out her true thoughts. I'm sorry. I just wanted to learn guitar from Goto-san. I wasn't bullying Goto-san. Please don't misunderstand. You want to learn guitar from Poshita? Haru's mouth twitched. What the hell was this unexpected development? I really only came here for that purpose. Thinking Haru didn't believe her, Yui Hirasawa explained with a panicked face, I'm a guitar beginner, currently being taught by club members, but I can't always trouble them, so when I saw Goto-san who can play guitar, I wanted to get to know her and learn from her. I really had this intention. Please believe me, classmate. Yui Hirasawa mistakenly thought she was being treated as a bad person, and Haru's expressionless face made her think he didn't believe her explanation, immediately scaring her to the point of tears. Ritsu-chan, Mio-chan, Samyugi-chan, please come save me. She was terrified. Alright, I believe you. Seeing that Yui Hirasawa was about to cry, Haru quickly said with amusement. Really? Yui Hirasawa's eyes lit up, and she immediately showed grateful expression toward Haru while choking back tears. It's so good that you believe me. You're really a good person. You're the good person here. Haru's face stiffened slightly, but he still patiently prepared to explain. After all, just moments ago, the system had already sent a notification that this airhead Yui was also someone with special qualifications. You don't need to worry. Goto-san just has some social anxiety, which is why she's hiding in the box. Haru smiled and explained to Yui Hirasawa, then gently kicked the box at his feet. Poshita, you heard that too. This classmate wants to learn guitar from you. Can you come out for a moment? Yui Hirasawa nervously looked toward the box. She just wanted Hitori Goto to come out of the box quickly, otherwise she really couldn't clear her name even if she jumped into the Yellow River. However, Hitori Goto had already decided not to come out, mainly because she didn't dare face Haru. As an innocent girl, being hugged by a boy she met for the first time for 10 minutes was too stimulating. Hitori Goto's thin skin couldn't handle it. Sorry, classmate. It looks like Poshita doesn't dare come out while you're here. Haru smiled slightly at Yui Hirasawa. How about you leave for a moment, and I'll talk to Poshita. The main reason is you. Hitori Goto wailed in her heart while hiding in the box. Thinking about having to face Haru alone after Yui Hirasawa left made her even more nervous, wanting to immediately jump out and ask that Hirasawa classmate to stay. However, I see. Yui Hirasawa was a bit disappointed. If Hitori Goto didn't come out, she really couldn't feel at ease. But she also didn't want Hitori Goto to keep hiding in the box, so she could only look at Haru pleadingly and say, then I'll leave first. Please make sure to explain clearly to Goto-san. After speaking, she turned and left the classroom with her guitar on her back. I'm doomed. In the box, Hitori Goto heard Yui Hirasawa's departing footsteps and regretted it so much that tears came out. She should have come out earlier. Now only Haru was left. What should she do now? Poshita? Haru looked at the cardboard box at his feet with an amused expression, trying to get Hitori Goto to come out first. However, there was no response from inside the cardboard box. This is problematic. Haru stroked his chin. Hitori Goto not coming out wouldn't work. Otherwise, what about his task? I've got it. Haru's eyes lit up as he immediately knew how to convince Hitori Goto to come out of the box, so he smiled slightly. Poshita, if you don't come out, your best chance to become popular is going to disappear. Whoosh. Hitori Goto instantly appeared in front of Haru, her blue eyes staring intently at him, saying extremely nervously, become popular? Becoming popular was Hitori Goto's lifelong dream that she had been yearning for since childhood. Even practicing guitar diligently was to become popular. Hearing that she actually had such an opportunity, she couldn't care about being shy anymore and immediately jumped out. But after speaking, seeing Haru's face, the shame immediately regained the high ground, making her pretty face turn crimson again as she quickly lowered her head. But thinking about the chance to become popular, Hitori Goto still endured the shame in her heart and didn't hide back in the cardboard box. Before that, let's first do what we should do. Haru looked at Hitori Goto with a grin. What we should do? Hitori Goto was stunned. What was the thing they should do? Poshita, did you forget? Haru acted surprised instead. Didn't you promise yesterday to help me control my sense of smell? Wait. Hitori Goto immediately knew what Haru wanted to do, her face burning hot as she shook her little head like a rattle. No. Absolutely not. Hitori Goto wanted to cry. Hadn't they already hugged? Why did they still need to do that kind of thing? Poshita, you can't go back on something you promised a friend. Haru deliberately put on a stern face and said to Hitori Goto, if others find out that Poshita is someone who doesn't keep her word, Poshita won't be able to become popular. You can't become popular? Hitori Goto's crimson face immediately froze, and her lips began to tremble. No, that was her dream. Immediately, Hitori Goto was torn to the extreme. Seeing Hitori Goto like this, Haru felt a bit guilty. I've completely become a villain, haven't I, deliberately scaring her? Haru thought guiltily. But to get Hitori Goto to gather courage, acting like a villain seemed to be the best method. Whatever villain it is. I'm also doing this to complete the task. No, I'm also doing this to help Poshita become popular, so I'm deliberately pretending to be a villain. Thinking of this, Haru immediately decided that in front of Poshita, this villain act had to continue. Chapter 41, Poshita makes a friend? Concerns about the 6 powers Poshita, how have you decided? Haru stared at Hitori Goto. Hitori Goto's face became increasingly crimson, lowering her head not daring to look at Haru, her body trembling. If you stay silent, I'll take it as your agreement. Haru smiled slightly, obviously understanding Hitori Goto's meaning. So without being polite, he gently embraced Hitori Goto's soft, delicate body. It was after school now, and there weren't many people left in the school, so he wasn't worried about being seen. 10 minutes passed quickly. Haru breathed a sigh of relief and released Hitori Goto. Hitori Goto's entire face had turned completely red, with steam rising from her forehead, as if she was about to faint. Without a doubt, this time was much more nerve-wracking than yesterday. Although yesterday was in public, it was on the train with no acquaintances around. But this time was at school, where they could easily be discovered. If someone saw them, that would be quite the spectacle. No wait, someone had already seen them. Haru sighed and turned toward the doorway. Hirasawa-san, Please stop hiding. I didn't see anything. Yui Hirasawa shouted in panic, stepping out from behind the wall corner, her face red as she frantically waved her hands in explanation. Hitori Goto, who was too shy to breathe properly, immediately widened her blue eyes when she saw Yui Hirasawa appear, her face turning as red as a cooked shrimp. Then, with circles spinning in her eyes, her body collapsed. Fortunately, Haru moved quickly and caught her. But as soon as he caught Hitori Goto, her body trembled, not daring to look at Haru, and she immediately shrank back into the cardboard box. Never mind. This time Haru had no intention of calling Hitori Goto out again. For a social anxiety sufferer to be caught in the act like this must be quite a shock for Hitori Goto. Let her calm down first. Goto-san, are you okay? Yui Hirasawa cried out in panic and rushed over. Haru looked speechlessly at the person in front of him. With his enhanced senses, he had long ago detected Yui Hirasawa hiding at the doorway and peeking. However, because he couldn't interrupt during task execution, Haru hadn't called out this person. Hirasawa-san, didn't you leave? He said to Yui Hirasawa with annoyance. Getting Hitori Goto to agree to today's task had taken Haru quite a bit of effort. With this incident happening, convincing Hitori Goto next time would be at least 3 levels more difficult. Sorry. Yui Hirasawa first smiled awkwardly, wanting to find an excuse to explain, but unfortunately with her brain, she couldn't think of any excuse for the moment, and finally could only honestly bow her head and apologize. I just wanted to confirm that Goto-san was okay, so I came back. I wasn't deliberately peeking at you and Goto-san being intimate. Yui Hirasawa raised her flushed face, looking at Haru embarrassedly. This was the first time she had seen a real campus couple, and while feeling shy, she also had a strange sense of excitement and was full of curiosity. Don't tell anyone about this. Haru sighed. What else could he do? He couldn't erase Yui Hirasawa's memory. Not to mention he didn't have that ability, even if he did, there was no need. Originally I planned to convince Poshita to teach you guitar. Haru said helplessly, but now like this, there's no chance. He really had planned this, to help Poshita successfully escape her socially anxious life. Becoming good friends with Yui Hirasawa would be a great opportunity. After all, the 4 cuties from the light music club were all lively and kind. Having them help Poshita, there was a high probability that Poshita could escape her lonely campus life. Even if Poshita followed her original fate and joined Kesoku Band, making 3 equally helpful good friends, that was outside school after all. The only one on campus, Kita, was a super popular person, and she wouldn't dare approach her when others were around. So joining the light music club would really suit Poshita. However, with this incident, at least today there was definitely no way to convince her. Of course, Haru didn't plan to give up on this idea. Wait, please give me one more chance. Yui Hirasawa clasped her hands together, saying frantically, I really want to become friends with Goto-san and discuss guitar together. Please help me, classmate. Haru felt the box under his feet obviously tremble. His face couldn't help but show a hint of amusement. It seemed Yui Hirasawa's words had moved Poshita. Making friends on campus was probably a dream she wanted to achieve even in her sleep. But Hitori Goto still hid in the box. She didn't come out. Haru raised an eyebrow. He suddenly realized that the person in the way might be himself. That's right. In Hitori Goto's heart, making friends and escaping her lonely life had become an obsession. Now that the opportunity had come, she couldn't possibly not be moved. The reason she didn't dare come out was obviously because she was too shy to face him. Understanding the situation, Haru chuckled, since Hirasawa-san is so sincere, then you can explain things clearly with Poshita yourself. I won't disturb you too. Speaking thus, he prepared to get up and leave, giving the 2 guitar girls some space. Wait, classmate, if you leave, won't Goto-san be even less likely to come out? Yui Hirasawa asked worriedly. It's okay, this time is different. Haru smiled slightly, then walked toward the exit, leaving behind a completely confused Yui Hirasawa and Hitori Goto in the box, who finally breathed a sigh of relief. Oh right, I seem to have forgotten to tell Poshita my name again. Just after walking out the school gate, Haru slapped his forehead in frustration. I've hugged her twice already, but she doesn't even know my name. Doesn't this make me seem a bit scummy? Haru was helpless, but he couldn't possibly go back now. This might be the crucial moment for Poshita to escape her socially anxious life. Never mind, next time. After thinking, Haru gave up the idea of returning. After eating another meal at the yakiniku restaurant, he returned home and started watching the Anai's Lobby arc of One Piece online. Watching CP9 use the 6 powers to overwhelm the protagonist group filled Haru with anticipation. Such techniques, he would be able to learn in reality before long. But the 6 powers are a bit flashy. If used in reality, they would probably immediately cause a huge commotion. Haru raised an eyebrow. In modern society, cameras were everywhere, and there were high-tech things like satellite surveillance systems monitoring Earth from space 24 hours a day. Although no one might necessarily notice a small character like Haru, what if they did? Haru didn't want to expose the fact that he was superhuman to those major powers. Exposing his X-ray vision in front of Yukino Shita and Rika Takanashi didn't bother him, since even if those two said anything, no one would believe them. The strength of an ox, this kind of physical enhancement, while rare, wouldn't actually raise too much suspicion. Even Haruno hadn't said anything about it. But the 6 powers were different. Sora's terrifying speed, and Jeppo could even fly into the sky. Once Haru used them, they would definitely be captured by satellites. The difference was only whether those people monitoring satellite footage would notice the commotion around Haru. And after learning the 6 powers, Haru would definitely learn even more powerful abilities that caused even bigger commotions. At this rate, exposure would only be a matter of time. So I need to think of an ability to hide my existence. Haru's eyes flickered. He needed to avoid being discovered by people around him and avoid being captured by cameras. Ideally, he would become like an invisible person, unless he was willing, no one could discover him. As for who to get this ability from, Haru knew almost without thinking. He hadn't forgotten that there was someone with maxed-out presence concealment right beside him. Saint Megumi, it's you. Haru's lips curved upward. Tomorrow he would look for Megumi Kato. Chapter 42, A Date with Saint Megumi. Outside the subway station, Haru waited patiently for Megumi Kato. Today was the weekend, and wanting to get suggestions from Megumi Kato, he had asked her out. Since Megumi Kato hadn't arrived yet, Haru took out his phone to watch One Piece, completing today's task first. Haru-kun. Just then, a pleasant, gentle voice came from ahead. Haru looked up and was instantly stunned. Today's Megumi Kato had obviously dressed up carefully for going out. She wore a white beret on her head, a bright red short jacket over a form-fitting white dress with a cute bow tied at the collar. Below the skirt hem was the tempting absolute territory, her slender legs wrapped in white stockings, showing off her perfectly slender and beautiful legs to the fullest. Which fairy tale had this princess escaped from? This woman usually kept a low profile at school, and if you didn't pay special attention, she really was an inconspicuous heroine. But seeing her outside, she was at full power, beautiful enough to make bubbles. Seeing Haru's stunned gaze, Megumi Kato's beautiful eyes flashed with a hint of mischief as she covered her mouth and laughed softly. Why aren't you saying anything, Haru-kun? Haru was silent for a moment, then showed a completely serious expression. Marry me, Megumi-chan. Such a beautiful Saint Megumi made Haru's heart pound with excitement. Almost without thinking, he said what was in his heart at that moment. At this moment, Haru had only one thought: such a cute Saint Megumi absolutely couldn't be wasted on that worthless Saki Tomoya. He definitely had to win her over. Megumi Kato's face reddened, not expecting Haru to say such a thing. Haru-kun, really, don't joke around like that. Megumi Kato reproached him with her emotionally stable, gentle voice. If Rika, Fumino, or Yukino Shita-san heard that, they would be jealous. Getting those beautiful girls jealous over someone as unremarkable and ordinary as me wouldn't be worth it. Megumi-chan, your words have 2 big problems. Haru looked at Megumi Kato speechlessly. First, and most importantly, please don't humble brag. You're not some unremarkable ordinary girl, you're a super cute beautiful girl. Hearing this, Megumi Kato's face reddened again. Being called a cute beautiful girl was a first for her. However, she was also a little happy inside. Second, even if Rika and the others heard it, it wouldn't matter. Haru didn't care. After all, I'm telling the truth, and why would I be jealous? Haru-kun, while I appreciate your compliments, are you serious about that last part? Megumi Kato looked at Haru reproachfully. Why would they be jealous? Did he really not understand? Of course I'm serious. Haru was completely righteous about it. Although he got along well with Rika and the others and admitted in his heart that he had some feelings for them, feelings were just feelings, they weren't officially dating yet. So even if he pursued other girls, there was nothing wrong with that. As for Yukino Shita, there was even less need to worry. Yukino Shita and he were like fire and water. For Megumi Kato to say that woman would be jealous, Haru seriously doubted Megumi Kato's judgment. Alright, let's stop joking around. Megumi Kato lightly brushed her hair with her small hand, raising the corner of her lips in a smile. Haru-kun, didn't you say this morning that you had something serious to discuss with me? Haru remembered that he did have serious business today, so he stopped joking around and said, let's go to a cafe first and then talk. Soon, the two arrived at a quiet cafe. Megumi-chan, I asked you out today because I actually wanted to seek your guidance. Haru looked expectantly at Megumi Kato in front of him. Megami Kato's beautiful eyes showed a trace of confusion. Haru-kun, someone as excellent as you still needs guidance from an ordinary person like me? I told you, stop being so modest. You're not ordinary at all. Please have some self-awareness, Megami-chan. Haru said speechlessly. But I really am ordinary. Ordinary looks, ordinary grades, and no special talents. If it weren't for Haru-kun's invitation, I wouldn't have even joined a club. Megami Kato showed a serious expression, speaking in her usual emotionally stable tone. Ordinary looks. You're so cute, how is that ordinary? Haru said with annoyance. If he hadn't gotten to know Megami Kato well these past few days and knew she really thought this way, Haru would suspect this person was deliberately being modest. Haru-kun, you're the only one who has ever called me cute since I was little. Megami Kato's eyes showed a hint of amusement, but I know you're deliberately complimenting me. If I were really cute, it wouldn't be possible that no one has ever noticed me since childhood. Furuashi-san, Ogata-san, Yukinoshita-san, and Takanashi-san are always the center of male attention wherever they go, but I've never been properly looked at even once. She paused, then looked at Haru with a blush, saying somewhat shyly, of course, except for Haru-kun, which is why I've always thought Haru-kun was strange. Not strange at all. Haru looked at Megami Kato, who had no self-awareness whatsoever, feeling extremely speechless. However, hearing Megami Kato's words, Haru thought it was ridiculous that she hadn't become super socially anxious like Poshita. Logically speaking, Megami Kato's experiences were actually similar to Poshita's, but Megami Kato didn't have any social anxiety at all. Without a doubt, this is talent. Haru sighed. After all, there was only one Saint Megami. Social anxiety sufferers like Poshita were everywhere in Japan. Megami-chan, you should know the reason why no one notices you. Haru looked at Megami Kato seriously, because you actually have a very terrifying talent. Haru-kun is joking again. I don't even know what talents I have. Megami Kato looked completely unconvinced. But she was secretly a bit hopeful inside. After all, who wouldn't want to have unique strengths? Saint Megami was the same, especially since she had been spending time with very excellent girls, making the somewhat insecure Megami Kato hope she had something special about herself. You do. Haru nodded seriously, your talent is that terrifyingly low presence. The expectation in Megami Kato's beautiful eyes immediately disappeared, and her gaze became somewhat hollow. After a long silence, she looked at Haru with a slightly reproachful gaze and said, Haru-kun, even someone as unremarkable as me can get angry, you know. I'm really telling the truth, Megami-chan. Haru stared at Megami Kato with full Chuunibyou energy. Actually, I came to find you today because I wanted to ask you how to learn such a superpower. Megami Kato looked at Haru with a weird expression of are you serious? If she didn't know that Haru's thought processes had always been different from ordinary people, Megami Kato would probably be a bit annoyed. But now, she could only sigh, Haru-kun, being ignored by people around you is not a superpower. This is a superpower. Haru's eyes flashed with deep meaning, showing the same passionate Chuunibyou expression as Rika. This is an ability similar to invisibility, allowing you to easily infiltrate anywhere, and even electronic devices can't detect you. Haru-kun, I thought you stayed with Rika because she was cute. It seems I misjudged you. I'm sorry. Megami Kato stared at Haru strangely for a while. Megami-chan, is that how you've always seen me? Haru's face darkened. Although he really wasn't a Chuunibyou patient, he stayed with Rika Takanashi mainly to increase bond values, not because of Rika Takanashi's cuteness. Of course, Rika Takanashi's cuteness was also a factor, but it definitely wasn't the main reason. Sorry, because Haru-kun really did seem different from Rika before. Megami Kato smiled slightly and quickly apologized. I don't accept it. Haru snorted, Megami-chan, you actually questioned my character, which makes me very angry. Unless you tell me how to learn your superpower, we'll end our friendship. Megami Kato's beautiful eyes flashed with amusement. She naturally knew Haru wasn't angry, saying, Haru-kun, even if what you say is true and being ignored is my superpower, I'm completely clueless about this superpower too. How can you expect me to teach it to you? Haru's face showed a smile. He had finally succeeded in his persuasion. Megami-chan, how did you acquire this superpower? Haru looked at Megami Kato. You can think about what special habits you have, whether in studying or daily life, that led to you becoming someone who gets ignored like this. Special habits? Megami Kato tilted her head, showing a thoughtful expression, then looked at Haru apologetically. Sorry, Haru-kun, I really can't think of any special habits I have. Really none? Haru raised an eyebrow. At such a crucial moment, how could he give up? He stared at Megami Kato with a serious expression. You can think more carefully and just say one or two at random. I really can't think of any. Megami Kato said helplessly, After all, I'm just an ordinary person who can't gain any insights from daily life. Haru-kun, you spend time with me normally too. If I really had special habits, you would have observed them from my life long ago. Megumi Kato thought her answer would disappoint Haru and felt somewhat apologetic. However, what she didn't expect was that as soon as she finished speaking, Haru's face flashed with joy. Chapter 43, Let's Live Together, Megumi. The system notification came. But after reading the suggestion content, Haru's expression became somewhat dazed. Ding. Suggestion. Live together with Megumi Kato continuously for 3 days and observe her lifestyle habits. Reward. Presence concealment. Haru was a bit stunned. The ability he wanted had indeed been triggered. The system's reward, presence concealment, could directly block his own existence, undetectable even by electronic devices. Moreover, this presence concealment wasn't Megumi Kato's passive talent, but an active skill that Haru could control himself. The problem was that the suggestion reward actually required living together with Megumi Kato for 3 days. Living together with a beautiful girl like Megumi Kato, Haru was naturally very willing. The problem was that Megumi Kato would never agree to it. Not to mention that Haru and Megumi Kato weren't in a romantic relationship. Even if they were lovers, they were still high school students. How could she possibly agree to live together with him for 3 days? This is a bit troublesome. Haru secretly sighed in his heart, but thinking about this reward, he decided he should at least try. What if Megumi Kato agreed? Haru's thoughts raced rapidly, and instantly, he knew how to start this conversation. However, whether she would agree or not depended entirely on Megumi Kato's thoughts. Taking a deep breath, Haru looked seriously into Megumi Kato's beautiful eyes, his gaze full of earnestness as he said, Megumi, I think what you just said was absolutely right. Megumi Kato's pretty face showed a trace of confusion. Haru-kun, your words are a bit strange. I clearly didn't say anything. No, you did. Haru's face showed a smile. Didn't you just say that if I live together with you, I could learn the method to master this talent by observing your lifestyle? So, please live together with me. I'm begging you, Megumi-chan. As soon as these words came out, Megumi Kato's pretty face immediately froze. After being stunned for a long while, she picked up her water cup and lowered her head to take a small sip. Really, Haru-kun? Without raising her head, Megumi Kato's voice was still as gentle as always, her tone still as calm as always, yet slightly trembling. Even so, such a request is really a bit too much for a girl. If I didn't know that Haru-kun is the same type of person as Rekka, I would have misunderstood. I might have called the police on the spot. Originally, Haru hadn't had much hope and thought he would definitely be rejected. But seeing that with Megumi Kato's usual composure, she was reacting like this at the moment, not daring to raise her head to look at him, his heart began to race wildly. He suddenly felt that perhaps there was a chance. Moreover, although Megumi Kato's response carried some reproach, it wasn't that absolute or uncompromising. Immediately, Haru's heart pounded, knowing that the opportunity had come. Megumi-chan, I just need 3 days, and I'm confident I can learn the talent I mentioned. Haru's voice became more emphatic, his tone more sincere. Please, Megumi-chan. As soon as he finished speaking, Megumi Kato's lowered face became even redder. She quietly raised her beautiful eyes to glance at Haru. In her pretty pupils, there was shyness, nervousness, and some reproach, as if she wanted to say, do you even hear what you're saying? However, Megumi Kato remained silent. After a while of silence, she gently parted her lips. Haru-kun, do you really want to learn that strange talent? She paused, then looked into Haru's eyes with a slight blush, saying in a probing tone, and not have some other thoughts? Hearing this, Haru became even more excited. With Megumi Kato's personality, when she asked such a question instead of directly refusing, there really might be a chance. Haru knew the crucial moment had arrived. At this time, he had to remove Megumi Kato's defenses to get her to agree to this admittedly excessive request. Megumi-chan, please rest assured, I really am doing this to learn your extraordinary talent for concealing presence. Haru looked directly into Megumi Kato's eyes with complete seriousness, full of sincerity, without any guilty appearance whatsoever. He emphasized that he had no ulterior motives. After all, what he was saying was true. Haru-kun, that's not an extraordinary talent at all. Hearing Haru's answer, Megumi Kato's eyes flashed with barely noticeable disappointment.